Today is the 5th wedding anniversary of my wife Jongwon and I. I waited for her alone in the restaurant for 3 hours. But she is with her first love. I called her, but no one answered the phone until I was about to leave, when she sent me a message. Li Ziheng, my classmate Chung Hao is sick. I have to take care of him. I may not be back tonight. Don't wait for me. This was the 4th time she stood me up this month, and each time it was about Chung Hao. I was no stranger to the name Chung Hao. The first time was when Chung Hao had problems at work, and the second time was when he was heartbroken and drank and made trouble. After losing the third truth or dare game, he actually asked her for help. This time, it was even more outrageous because Chung Hao was sick. I never understood why she cared so much about Chung Hao until I learned the truth from her best friend tonight. Chung Hao was Jong Won's boyfriend in college, but their 4-year relationship ended because he went abroad for further studies. The feelings that Jong Won had never let go of also became her white moonlight. My heart was in turmoil, but Jong Won and I were already married at that time. In order to be with her, I gave up my family and everything. I hid my identity as a second-generation rich man and married my wife as a poor boy, so I had to accept the ridicule and contempt of my father-in-law, but I had no regrets. As long as she was happy, I was willing to endure anything. But a month ago, Chung Hao returned to China, and Jiang Wan went to the airport to pick him up. She drank a lot of wine, and when I drove her back, she cried for a long time in the room. That night, I met Chung Hao for the first time. He was handsome and sunny and was once the campus hunk in Jiang Wan's university, but I didn't care at that time. It was not until today that I realized that Chung Hao's return had become a hidden danger to our marriage. After dinner, I couldn't help but call Chung Hao. Jiang Wan's phone was turned off. Chung Hao said she was taking a shower and would be at his place tonight. As soon as the call was hung up, I completely exploded and yelled at Chung Hao on the phone, but Chung Hao's response made me even more disappointed. The one who is not loved is the mistress. I got into a car accident in anger. Fortunately, my injuries were not serious, but I was still sent to the hospital. When the doctor told me that I was fine, I received a Fishin friend request from Chung Hao. After the friend was approved, he sent me 3 photos of Jiang Wan. In the photos, she was drunk, wearing a bathrobe, and even lying on the bed with her shoulders exposed, full of intimacy. When I looked at these photos, my heart seemed to be torn apart, and it hurt so much that I couldn't breathe. The photo was quickly withdrawn, and Chung Hao also blocked me. I walked out of the hospital in despair. I didn't know when it started to rain. I didn't hold an umbrella, but just walked home aimlessly in the rain. The wedding room that once belonged to us now seemed so cold. Standing on the balcony, I lit a cigarette, letting my thoughts flow, recalling every little bit from childhood to adulthood. Those happy moments, those sweet pictures, formed the sharpest contrast with the pain now. I began to doubt myself, doubt this marriage, and even doubt whether the love I once had really existed. Why have I become so humble, so pitiful? I asked myself. Since when did I become so anxious about gain and loss and afraid of losing? At this moment, I realized that I couldn't go on like this. I had lost too much for her in the past 5 years, and now I had to live for myself. Taking a deep breath, I returned to my room, grabbed a change of clothes, and went into the bathroom. 10 minutes later, my mind calmed down. I called my mother, whom I had not contacted in 5 years. When I heard my mother's familiar voice on the other end of the phone, I finally couldn't hold it in anymore and said in a hoarse voice, "Mom, you were right. I was too naive. I am sorry." At that moment, I broke down and burst into tears, crying hysterically. My mother was silent for a long time on the other end of the phone. Only when my crying gradually subsided did she slowly speak. She told me that she had been paying attention to me for the past 5 years, including everything that had happened recently. She said that I had been wronged, but it was all my choice. She would not sympathize with me or comfort me, but she could give me a chance to make up for my past mistakes with my actions. I was shocked when I heard her words. I understood that this was the last chance my mother gave me, and it was also the beginning of my rebirth. I promised her that from this moment on, I would never let myself fall into humiliation again, nor would I let anyone trample on my dignity again. I looked out the window, the rain gradually stopped, and the sky was bright. And my life should also usher in a new dawn. At 7:20 in the morning, Jiang Wan came back, supported by Chung Hao. Their clothes were disheveled, as if they were still hungover. She rubbed her brows and looked like she had a splitting headache. I sat on the sofa, watching them walk in step by step, feeling indescribable. Chung Hao was the first to notice me. and he immediately removed his hand from Jiang Wan's waist, with a mocking smile on his face. "Vanna, look." Chung Hao lowered his voice and whispered in her ear. Jiang Wan followed his gaze and looked at me. Her eyes were cold and clear, without a trace of guilt. "You're up so early?" she asked, her tone as calm as if she was asking about the weather. Before I could say anything, she continued, "I have a headache. Please make me a bowl of hangover soup." Without waiting for my answer, Chung Hao said considerately, "Wanner, you should have a good rest. I'll go back first." He made a gesture to leave, but was stopped by Jiang Wan. "You drank quite a bit last night. Don't leave in a hurry. It won't be too late to leave after you drink the sobering soup." Her tone was gentle, but it sounded harsh to me. Chung Hao refused, but stopped. He turned his head and glanced at me, with a fake smile on his face. "Wanner, your husband seems to be in a bad mood. I'm afraid he will misunderstand me if I stay." Hearing this, Jiang Wan turned to look at me impatiently, frowning and scolding in her tone. "Li Ziheng, I asked you to make a hangover soup. Can't you hear me?" I gave them a cold look and said indifferently, "Don't you have hands yourself?" She was stunned, as if she didn't expect me to say that. What did you say?" she asked in disbelief. I lit a cigarette, took a deep breath, exhaled the smoke, and said in a voice as cold as ice in winter, "I say, don't you have hands? Who do you think you are to let me make you a hangover soup? Do you think you deserve it?" The air seemed to freeze at this moment. Chung Hao tried to smooth things over. He patted Jiang Wan on the shoulder and said with a smile, "Wanner, don't be angry. The most important thing between husband and wife is communication. He may just be worried about you." Then he looked at me with a hint of reprimand in his tone. "Li Ziheng, right, Wanner always praises you, but you are too ignorant to treat her like this now. She worked hard all night last night. You should take care of her." I looked at Chung Hao, my heart boiling with anger, but I smiled. "Take care of her? Aren't you good at taking care of her? Why don't you do it after all? What man wouldn't like a wife, especially one as pretty and in good shape as her?" Jiang Wan's face turned ugly in an instant, and she gritted her teeth and said, "Li Ziheng, you are simply hopeless. People with dirty thoughts see everything as dirty." After that, she pulled Chung Hao towards the guest room without any hesitation. "You haven't recovered from your cold yet, and you didn't sleep well last night. Come here and rest for a while today. We'll go to the company together at noon." Her voice was soft, but it was like a needle piercing my heart. Before Chung Hao entered the guest room, he stood in front of me and scolded me condescendingly. "Li Ziheng, what kind of man are you? Wanner tried so hard, but you did nothing. You should be grateful instead of humiliating her like this." I stopped suppressing my anger, stood up, and punched him in the face. He staggered back, stunned. I sneered. "Who do you think you are? You are a piece of trash who came back because you couldn't make it, and you dare to show off in front of me? You'd better put away your tricks, otherwise I don't mind throwing you into the trash can," I said coldly and turned to walk towards the door. Jiang Wan rushed up to stop me, her eyes red and gnashing her teeth. "Where are you going?" I smiled. My tone was full of fatigue. "Do you care?" She pulled my hand, and I shook it off without hesitation. "Let me stay? Play a threesome with you?" "Sorry, I won't do such disgusting things." The moment I closed the door, I seemed to hear her footsteps chasing me out. But no, it was all just my fantasy. With the last bit of hope, my heart completely died. Walking downstairs, I took a deep breath and felt the fresh air in the morning. Suddenly, my cell phone rang. It was an unfamiliar number. After the call was connected, a clear female voice came. "Mr. Li Ziheng, I am Anya, the president of Yinhai International Trade. The headquarters asked me to contact you to handle the entry procedures for you." The other party was Anya, the president of Yinhai International Trade. She affectionately called me Master Ziheng and asked me to send her location so that she would pick me up immediately. After hanging up the phone, I received a Feishan friend request. When I clicked on it, I saw the avatar of a beautiful woman in a red dress standing next to a Ferrari. She was tall and had an outstanding temperament. Anya. I chewed on this name in my heart, and it sounded familiar. The dream lover of all men in Yunqing, the beautiful CEO famous for her beauty and ability, was actually the head of my mother's branch. I felt a little relieved. With her mother's support, she could naturally reject any suitor, including the richest man in Yunqing. But why was she so close to me and even drove to pick me up? About 10 minutes later, a red Ferrari stopped in front of me. The door opened and Anya, dressed in a business suit, asked with a gentle smile, "Master Ziheng?" Her attitude surprised me. The intimacy didn't seem like we had just met, but more like the natural expression between acquaintances. Along the way, I couldn't help but ask, Bossin, have we met before? Anya smiled, her eyes gentle. Master, in fact, I have seen you no less than 10 times. In the past, the young lady often brought you to some occasions, such as that cocktail party. She mentioned a detail. Last year, Jiangwan was forced to drink and passed out at a party, and was nearly taken advantage of by someone, and I rushed to save her. Hearing this, my thoughts went back to that rainy night. That day, I had a high fever but still rushed to the party to save her. In order to protect Jiangwan, I had a conflict with a real estate boss who called in bodyguards and beat me up. I held her and left despite the pain, but the next day, Jiangwan blamed me for making her lose face in the circle. At that time, I thought that all my efforts would be exchanged for understanding and her love. Anya sighed softly, with a trace of pity in her eyes. Master, I didn't know your identity at that time, but I envied the young lady very much. Someone was willing to risk everything for her. There was a hint of bitterness in her tone, but it calmed me down. It seemed like I had brought all this upon myself in the past, but now I didn't want to dwell on it any longer. Anya's words reminded me of many past events. I said calmly, Anya, I need you to help me with something. Can you draft a divorce agreement? She was stunned for a moment, then nodded and agreed. Of course, Master. But do you have any special requests? I shook my head. No, as long as we can get a divorce, nothing else matters. I no longer care about Jiang Wan and the Jiang family's assets. They no longer belong to my life. Anya nodded and carefully typed the terms of the agreement on the computer. The atmosphere in the car was very quiet until the red light, when she suddenly asked, Master, if we get divorced, will the cooperation with Zhang's be terminated? She continued, In fact, Zhang's enterprise is not our best partner. We have been supporting them at a loss for many years. It would be better for the company if we could terminate the cooperation. I was silent for a while, then whispered back, As for the cooperation, you decide for yourself. I just want to sort out the divorce now. After that, I looked out the window and gradually let go of the entanglements in my heart. While Anya was driving, I fell asleep unknowingly. When I woke up, it was already past 4 in the afternoon. The passenger seat was flat, and Anya was still wearing her suit. She was working in the driver's seat, and when she saw that I was awake, she handed me the divorce agreement. As I was about to read the agreement carefully, the screen of my phone lit up. The call from the note, wife, made my heart ache. I picked up the phone and heard Jiang Wan's familiar voice. Li Ziheng, you must come to the company to apologize to Cheng Hao. I was chilled to the bone. Her attitude was full of accusations, and even coaxing like a spoiled child. Honey, as long as you apologize, I'm willing to agree to anything you want. I sneered and asked back, Are you really willing to do anything? She answered straightforwardly, but when I mentioned firing Cheng Hao, she refused without hesitation. At this moment, I completely gave up. After hanging up the phone, I took a deep breath and said to Anya, Print out the agreement and send me to Zhang's enterprise. I should end this. I sat in the driver's seat, and Anya opened the door and got in. While fastening her seat belt, she glanced at me tentatively, as if she wanted to say something. I didn't give her a chance to speak. I just said coldly, Print out the divorce agreement first, and then send me to Zhang's enterprise. 15 minutes later, I stood downstairs of Zhang's enterprise and looked up at the familiar office building. This is the commercial center of Yunqing, where Zhang's enterprise is located. Zhang's company is engaged in drug research and development and sales, and has gained a lot of fame in recent years. But how much of this glory is due to my mother's support is only known to me. I walked straight into the company, and the receptionist and some familiar employees all looked at me. They recognized me, but no one dared to greet me. Perhaps they also knew my situation. Before I pushed open Jiang Wan's office door, I heard Cheng Hao's voice mix with Jiang Wan's chuckle. That chuckle pierced my heart like a needle. I took a deep breath, knocked on the door, and then pushed it open and walked in. The expressions of the two people in the office froze instantly, and their smiles disappeared completely. Jiang Wan sat in the office chair, propping her chin up, playing with a pen in her hand. The look in her eyes when she looked at Cheng Hao was something I had never seen in the past 5 years. Cheng Hao was sitting with his legs crossed, with a confident smile on his face. When he saw me, he quickly put his legs down, picked up his phone, and pretended to play with it. Jiang Wan coughed lightly, trying to cover up, Honey, you're here? There was no light or warmth in her eyes when she looked at me. I looked at Cheng Hao and asked with a sneer, Sorry, did I disturb you? What are you talking about? Jiang Wan's eyes dodged, and her voice was filled with a hint of impatience. Cheng Hao just came to ask me for advice on some business matters. I didn't expose her lie, but slowly said, You promised me that as long as I apologize to Chung Hao, you would agree to any request I make. Does that still count? Her eyes lit up when she heard that, and she said hastily, Of course. It was you who misunderstood Chung Hao and beat him up, so you should apologize to him. She then went on to praise Chung Hao, saying how he had opened up overseas channels and gained huge profits for the company. I looked at the smug look on her face and felt my heart aching as if it were being cut by a knife. She stood up and tried to hold my hand, but I moved aside and she didn't care. She just urged me, Husband, apologize to Chung Hao quickly. If he resigns, can you afford the loss of the company? I stared at her, silent for a few seconds, and nodded. Okay, I apologize. Then I turned to Chung Hao and squeezed out 3 words through gritted teeth. I'm sorry. Chung Hao looked up and said in fake surprise, Oh, are you talking to me? Sorry, I was playing with my phone and didn't hear you. I clenched my fists and my knuckles made a crackling sound. Jiang Wan hurriedly tried to smooth things over, scolding Chung Hao coquettishly, while he smiled and made a gesture of surrender. I saw all this, but I didn't say a word. I took a deep breath and said to Jiang Wan, I have done what you asked. Now, it's your turn. Jiang Wan frowned, obviously confused. Okay, tell me whatever you want, I'll agree to it. I handed her the divorce agreement without saying anything. She took it and looked down, and the smile on her face froze instantly. You want to divorce me? Her voice trembled, and her eyes were full of disbelief. Yes. My tone was calm as if I was talking about something that had nothing to do with me. Pa. The agreement fell from her hand to the ground. Her eyes were red, and her lips trembled slightly. Do you really want a divorce, Li Ziheng? I nodded, looked at Jiang Wan, and said calmly, Well, you promised me that as long as I apologized, you would agree to anything. Now, I want you to sign and go to the Civil Affairs Bureau with me to divorce next Monday. Hearing this, Jiang Wan's face turned pale instantly. She subconsciously took 2 steps back, as if she couldn't accept that I would actually make such a request. The air in the office suddenly stagnated, and the atmosphere was so oppressive that it was hard to breathe. Jiang Wan asked me with red eyes, Can you tell me why you want to divorce me? Because I don't love you anymore. I said calmly, as if I was describing a trivial matter. If you don't love me anymore, is there any point in continuing to live together? Jiang Wan sneered when she heard this, clenched her fists, and looked at me angrily. Li Ziheng, it was you who pursued me in the beginning, and it was you who begged me to marry you. We have been married for 5 years, and now you tell me that you don't love me anymore. What do you think of me? What do you think of our marriage? Have you been worthy of me in these 5 years? Jiang Wan's eyes were filled with hatred and grievance. I smiled lightly, not caring about her questioning. Jiang Wan, I have done nothing wrong to you in the past 5 years. Until yesterday, I still loved you and regarded you as my wife. But what about you? I said in a sudden tone, staring at her intently. What do you think of me? And what do you think of our 5 years of relationship? I pointed at Chung Hao standing beside me and sneered. What about him? Tell me, who is he? What is your relationship with him? Jiang Wan's eyes flickered, and she seemed a little guilty. He is the head of the business department of our company. We are just superiors and subordinates. A superior-subordinate relationship? I sneered. But because of this relationship, you stood me up 4 times in 1 month. Even on our 5th wedding anniversary yesterday, I enumerated her word by word. The first time I accompanied him to solve a business problem. The second time I comforted him after he broke up. The third time I helped him drink the wedding wine. And the 4th time, she even left me for him on our wedding anniversary. I became more and more excited. My chest ached, and I could hardly control my emotions. Jiang Wan, tell me, are you his close friend or his emotional guru? I was furious. You took care of him when he was sick. Are you a doctor? Did you take care of me when I was sick? Do you think I, Li Ziheng, am an idiot? Jiang Wan pursed her lips, her eyes complicated. I can explain. Explain? I sneered. No need. I have no interest in your so-called explanations. A woman who mentally cheated on me is just dirty to me. This sentence froze Jiang Wan. She stared at me in disbelief, her whole body trembling slightly. I bent down, picked up the divorce agreement on the ground, and handed it to her. Sign it. Let's part ways amicably and don't embarrass anyone. Jiang Wan gritted her teeth, her eyes filled with anger. Li Ziheng, are you really going to force me to this point? If you divorce, I won't give you a penny. I smiled and said nonchalantly, Do you think I am with you because of money? Don't forget how much money I had in my card before we got married. Jiangwan was speechless. She seemed to have forgotten that in order to be with her, I gave all the 3 million yuan in the card to her parents as a betrothal gift. I said coldly, after the divorce, I won't take a penny. Are you satisfied now? Can you sign it? Finally, she couldn't stand it anymore, snatched the divorce agreement, gritted her teeth and signed her name, then threw the agreement at me fiercely. Li Ziheng, how could you have the heart to divorce me? Don't regret it. I picked up the agreement calmly and said without a trace of emotion, regret is my business, don't worry about it. Jiangwan was so angry that she was shaking all over. She grabbed the coffee cup on the table and smashed it to the ground, shouting, "Get out!" The sound of the cup breaking echoed in the room, and I turned and left without stopping. As I walked out of the office, Chung Hao's voice came from behind me. Warner, don't be angry with this kind of man. I will be with you in the future. I didn't look back, but just sneered. Knock, knock, knock. Jiangwan was startled when she heard a knock on the door, thinking that I was back. But when the business manager pushed the door open, a trace of disappointment flashed across her face. The manager looked serious. General Manager, Yunhai International Trading Company has canceled the cooperation, and our overseas channels have been completely cut off. Jiangwan was shocked when she heard this. Yunhai was Zhang's core partner, accounting for 60% of the company's revenue. This news was nothing short of a disaster. Why cancel the cooperation? She asked anxiously, trying to suppress her panic. The other party said that Zhang's company is no longer qualified to cooperate. They cooperated before because of a certain person, but that person has nothing to do with Zhang's company now. Jiang Wan was stunned. The divorce agreement on the table flashed through her mind, and she murmured, "Could it be? They are referring to Li Ziheng?" Jiang Wan's expression became flustered because Yunhai canceled the cooperation, but she immediately shook her head to deny that I might be the reason. Impossible. Li Ziheng and Yunhai have no connection at all. How could they cancel the cooperation just because he is divorced? Although she denied it, there was a hint of uneasiness and speculation in her eyes, as if she was trying to find the answer. At this moment, the HR manager hurried in and said in a hurried tone, "General Manager, the chief engineer of the RD department has submitted his resignation application." What? Jiang Wan was stunned, her face becoming even more panicked. Why? The new drug optimization project hasn't been completed yet. Why is she leaving? The manager sighed. We just broke off our cooperation with Yunhai. If we lose her now, the company's core competitiveness in research and development will be completely gone. I just watched their conversation coldly without saying a word. All this seemed to be getting farther and farther away from me, and becoming less and less important. Jiang Wan panicked and turned to look at Chung Hao on the sofa. Chung Hao, you have such a wide network of contacts. There must be a way, right? Help me, okay? Chung Hao frowned, pretending to be thoughtful, and comforted her in a calm tone. Warner, don't worry. This matter came too suddenly. I need time to digest it. But don't worry, I will definitely help you solve it. Hearing this, Jiang Wan breathed a sigh of relief and was full of expectations for him. I believe you. You will definitely find a way. But her eyes were still tired, and she looked a little unable to hold on. Afterwards, she took the initiative to meet the chief engineer at the coffee shop downstairs in the company, trying to keep him. I didn't say anything about this, but just watched her struggle quietly. When I got home in the evening, I started to pack my luggage. I folded it piece by piece and put it neatly into the suitcase. I knew that this was the last time I would stay in this place. As I was dragging my luggage towards the gate, Jiangwan suddenly appeared behind me. Her eyes were slightly red, and she asked forcefully, "Where are you going so late?" Without even turning my head, I said calmly, "We're already divorced, and it's not appropriate for us to live together anymore. I'm moving out tonight." Her voice suddenly rose. "Okay, then get out of here. Also, I don't want you to set foot in this house again. Leave the key behind." When I heard her close the door, I didn't stop. I just put the key on the coffee table, pushed open the door, and left alone. At the gate of the community, I saw Anya waiting there in her car. When she got out of the car to help me load my luggage, she couldn't help complaining, "Did you put stones in your suitcase? Why is it so heavy?" Seeing her slightly funny actions, I couldn't help but laugh. "Thank you for picking me up. Remember to let me know when you get home." "Okay, young master," she teased with a smile, then pretended to be obedient and took out her cell phone, as if she was used to my cold and indifferent attitude. When I opened the door of the villa and was about to take a breath, my cell phone rang. It was a message from Anya. "Master, I'm home." When I looked up, I found her walking towards me with a smile on her face. I looked puzzled and said, "What are you doing?" She winked playfully. "Report to the master. I live here too." "You live here?" I asked in surprise, watching Anya change into slippers with rabbit prints on them with ease. Anya turned around and smiled. "Yes, I rented my villa to you." "What? Do you think I'm an eyesore?" I frowned slightly. It's not appropriate for a man and a woman to live together. But she shrugged nonchalantly. "You pay. I provide the room. We each get what we need. What's inappropriate about that?" Seeing that I was still standing at the door without moving, she urged me, "Don't just stand there. I made dinner. It will get cold if you don't eat it now." I hesitated for a moment, but finally walked in. She took me to the second-floor guest room, and after putting down my luggage, she invited me to have dinner. There were 3 dishes and a soup on the table, which was not very sumptuous, but it was quite thoughtful. "I practice cooking, try it." Anya handed me a bowl of rice and looked at me expectantly. I took a bite and nodded. "It's okay." "Oof, you're asking for a lot." She snorted in dissatisfaction, but continued to eat with a smile. During the meal, I mentioned that I was planning to rent another villa tomorrow. After all, if the news of this kind of living together got out, it would have a bad impact on her. Anya waved her hand nonchalantly. "Let it be a rumor. This is just fine. It can also stop those rumors that I like women." I sighed helplessly, knowing that it was useless to say more. After dinner, we went back to our rooms to rest. There was no conversation that night. The next morning, I got up early and made breakfast. There were footsteps upstairs. Anya walked downstairs lazily, with a surprised look on her face. "Master, you can cook? Stop talking nonsense. Eat quickly, and send me to the company after eating," I said coldly. She smiled and sat down to eat. Unexpectedly, she was full of praise. "Master, your cooking skills are so good. Can you cook for me every day in the future?" I was too lazy to pay attention to her and just urged her to leave quickly. Not long after, we arrived at Yunhai International Trade together. Today is the first day I officially take over the company. In the company, Anya took me all the way to the office. The employees greeted her one after another and couldn't help but peek at me. I vaguely heard someone whispering, "Why did President Im bring a handsome guy to the company?" After entering the elevator, Anya handed me a cup of coffee and pointed to the computer on the table and said, "Master, the company's detailed information is all in it. Please take a look first. I will arrange a high-level meeting at 11 o'clock to announce your identity." I nodded and turned on the computer, but unexpectedly saw a bunch of pictures of handsome 2D guys. Anya quickly grabbed the mouse. "Ah, this is not the file. Don't click randomly." She blushed and opened the right folder, patiently explaining the contents. I lowered my head to look through the documents, trying to stay focused, but the company's situation was more complicated than I thought. At the same time, John's company was in chaos. In the executive meeting room, the atmosphere was so depressing that it was suffocating. Jiang Haishin glanced at everyone coldly. "Yunhai has canceled the cooperation, and the chief engineer of the RD department has resigned." "Everyone, do you have anything to say?" The executives lowered their heads, and no one dared to respond. Jiang Wan stood up and said, "Chairman, Yunhai's cancellation of the cooperation is not our problem, and Sister Sue's resignation is also." "That's enough." Jiang Haishing interrupted her, his eyes stern. "Who do you think that person Yunhai mentioned is?" Jiang Wan blurted out, "Chung Hao. He has a wide network of contacts and has opened up overseas channels before." But Jiang Haishing sneered and shook his head. "It can't be him. Yunhai cooperated with us 5 years ago, and at that time, Chung Hao didn't even exist." Jiang Wan was stunned. Her face turned pale. 5 years ago? She subconsciously thought of Li Ziheng. They got married 5 years ago. Could it be that the reason why Yunhai canceled the cooperation was because of Li Ziheng? After the meeting, Zhang's internal affairs were in chaos. Chairman Jiang Haishing was furious and scolded everyone so much that they couldn't raise their heads. But Jiang Wan just felt indifferent. What did it have to do with her? Jiang Haishing sat in the boss chair with a gloomy face and some anger still lingering. "It's only been less than a year since I gave you the power, and you've caused such a big problem. Do you deserve my trust?" Jiang Wan was scolded with a face full of grievances and lowered her head to defend herself. "Dad, this is not my fault. Yunhai canceled the cooperation, and Sister Sue wants to resign. What can I do?" Jiang Haishing lowered his voice, but still full of dissatisfaction. "The company belongs to us. Others may not care, but we must. These 2 things must be resolved. Go to Yunhai in person and find out who that person they mentioned is. As for Sister Sue, Ask her to complete the optimization project at all costs. You can also take private jobs and try to meet her conditions. Jiang Wan nodded in agreement, but when she mentioned Cheng Hao, her eyes were obviously a little flustered. Jiang Haixing looked at her coldly. Cheng Hao? He just joined the company a month ago. How can he get Yin Hai's cooperation? Dad, he does have a lot of connections in overseas channels. Jiang Wan tried to defend Cheng Hao, but was interrupted by Jiang Haixing. Overseas channels? Don't tell me you really believed his lies. Cheng Hao is nothing. I personally went to the company to ask for the Yinhai cooperation. What does he have to do with it? Has he fooled you? The expression on Jiang Wan's face froze instantly, and her lips trembled slightly. What he said was all false. Her voice was so soft that it was almost inaudible, but her face was full of shock and loss. Jiang Haixing ignored her and waved her to deal with Yunhai's affairs, and said coldly, "Today is your mother's birthday. Remember to bring Li Ziheng home for dinner." This sentence hit Jiang Wan's heart like a heavy hammer. She paused for a moment, but could only respond in a low voice. Okay. At 11 o'clock in the morning, I was sitting in the office of Yunhai CEO. Anya held her head in her hands and stared at me helplessly. "Master, the headquarters arranged for you to take over the company, but you insisted on starting from the sales department?" I smiled and said, "I have been a house husband for 5 years and have become somewhat out of touch with society. Starting from the bottom, I have a more thorough and realistic understanding of the operation of the company." "Okay, whatever you want." Anya spread her hands helplessly. "But running sales is hard work. Don't regret it after just a few days." "No," I said with a smile. "Starting today, you notify the business department and I will report in." Anya nodded and was about to speak when the secretary knocked on the door. "Mr. N, the front desk said that Jiang Wan, the general manager of Jiang Group, wants to see you. Would you like to meet her?" I looked up, frowned slightly, and a sneer rose in my heart. Chapter 10: Jiang Wan's Speculation. Hearing the name Jiang Wan, Anya paused and looked at me, who had not left yet. The secretary stood by, also waiting for Anya's decision. Anya looked at me for a few seconds. I didn't say anything, but stood up and walked out of the office. She thought for a moment and finally nodded. "Let her come up." "Okay, Mr. N." Soon after the secretary left, Jiang Wan took the elevator to this floor. As soon as she got out of the elevator, her eyes locked on me. "Li Ziheng." Jiang Wan's voice was a little surprised, as if she didn't expect to meet me here. I didn't respond to her, but directly pressed the floor button, and the elevator door slowly closed in front of her. After Jiang Wan came to her senses, the secretary reminded her, "Ms. Jiang, President N is waiting for you in the office." She adjusted her mood and followed the secretary into Anya's office. Anya looked up at Jiang Wan. Her aura was so strong that Jiang Wan felt a little uneasy. She whispered, "Hello, Mr. N, I am from Jiang." "No need for introductions." Anya interrupted coldly. "I know who you are. If you have anything to say, just tell me. I'm busy." Jiang Wan was even more nervous because of Anya's aura. She took a break and said, "Bosson, I'm here to discuss cooperation. I hope Yinhai can continue to cooperate with Jiang's. If possible, we are willing to make concessions." Anya sneered, with disdain in her eyes. Ms. Jiang misunderstood. "We Yinhai don't care about this little benefit. If we cared, we wouldn't have cooperated with Jiang for 5 years." Jiang Wan's expression froze instantly, but she still asked, "Why was Yunhai willing to cooperate with Jiang 5 years ago?" Anya flipped through the documents in her hand and said calmly, "Because of one person." Jiang Wan's eyes flickered, and she asked tentatively, "Then, can you tell me who this person is?" Anya looked up at her, her tone becoming cold. "Sorry, no comment." "Secretary, please show me around." The secretary stepped forward and said, "Ms. Jiang, please." Jiang Wan looked embarrassed, suppressed her inner resentment, turned around, and left the office. After leaving Yunhai, Jiang Wan sat in the car and did not rush to leave, but repeatedly thought about what Anya had just said. The cooperation 5 years ago was because of one person. Could it be Li Ziheng? This thought struck her like a bolt of lightning, and she immediately took out her cell phone and dialed my number. The call was connected, but no one answered. She called several times in a row, and finally my phone was turned off. "Li Ziheng." She was so angry that she threw her phone onto the passenger seat and cursed in a low voice with anger and suppression. "Why didn't you answer my call?" After calming down, a terrible speculation gradually emerged in Jiang Wan's mind. She gritted her teeth and said, "Isn't you in love with Li Ziheng? If this is the case, Yunhai cooperated with Jiang's company because he also made sense." The more she thought about it, The more she felt that her speculation was true, and her emotions became more complicated. Li Ziheng, after you divorced me, you asked Anya to cancel the cooperation. Is this your revenge on me? At the same time, Anya was sitting in the office, her eyes falling on the phone on the table. My phone fell, and she had no intention of returning it. Seeing Jiang Wan's continuous calls, she showed a playful smile and turned off the phone directly. It seems that our young master Li is quite popular. Anya put her phone aside and continued to process documents. After returning to Jiang's company, Jiang Wan reported her speculation about Yunhai to her father Jiang Haixing. Dad, I think Li Ziheng is related to the cooperation with Yunhai. This time Yunhai canceled the cooperation. It is very likely that he was behind it. Jiang Haixing frowned after hearing this. This is just your guess. Do you have any evidence? How could that loser Li Ziheng be related to President Yunhai? Jiang Wan retorted eagerly. But I ran into him in Yunhai today. This can't be a coincidence, right? Jiang Haixing remained unmoved. Even if I met him, it wouldn't mean anything. He has no ability and no background. How could Mr. Impossibly like him? Jiang Wan gritted her teeth and continued. Dad, if you don't believe me, you can call him and ask him. But I think this is almost certain. The cancellation of Yunhai's cooperation must be related to him. Jiang Haixing snorted coldly with a sullen face. I will ask clearly, but not now. Today is your mother's birthday. Ask her to come home for dinner tonight, and I will ask her in person. Jiang Wan hesitated for a moment and whispered, but we have already signed the divorce agreement, and he may not come back. Jiang Haixing said firmly. So what if the divorce agreement is signed? As long as we don't get the marriage certificate, he is still the son-in-law of my Jiang family. His tone was unquestionable. Tell him that these are my words. I don't believe that he dares not to come back. Chapter 11, Honey. Who are you talking to on the phone? Time flies, and it is already 5:30 in the afternoon. Most people in Yunhai Company have already left work, and the whole office building seems particularly quiet. I was still sitting at my desk in the sales department, looking down at the client's files. Anya sat across from me, staring at me with her chin propped up, complaining unhappily. So hard. It's already off work. Can't we look at it tomorrow? You don't have to wait for me. I won't leave work until I finish reading the information. I didn't even raise my head and continued to flip through the documents. Anya rolled her eyes. Who was waiting for you? I was waiting for your food. I just wanted to eat your cooking. I really don't know what I want. I looked up and glanced at her, then put down the information in my hand and said, since you said so, let's go. If it's any later, the vegetable market will be closed. Anya's eyes lit up, and she immediately caught up with her bag. She followed me to the elevator, tilting her head and staring at me, smiling wickedly. Master, you are really extraordinary. Not only do you have a good temper, but you can also cook. I really want a man like this. I frowned, turned around, and glared at her. Don't flirt with me. After that, I continued walking forward. Anya chuckled and was about to make some more jokes when my phone rang. I took out my phone and answered it without even looking at the notes. Hello? Who is this? Who? Li Ziheng. Did you delete my phone number? I frowned when I heard Jiang Wan's questioning tone. I'm sorry, Miss Jiang. We have already signed a divorce agreement. You have no right to interfere in my affairs. I said in a cold and emotionless tone. Li Ziheng. Jiang Wan's voice suddenly rose, revealing suppressed anger. I didn't respond, just listened quietly. Her breathing came from the receiver, and then her tone softened a little. Today is Friday. Don't forget to go back to my parents' house for dinner. Sorry, I don't have time. Besides, I don't think it's necessary. I refused directly. Jiang Wan was silent for a moment, then said in a slightly threatening tone. Although we have signed the agreement, we haven't obtained a divorce certificate. Legally, we are still husband and wife. You must go. But I have promised my friend that I will cook for her tonight, I said calmly. Friend? What friend? Male or female? Do I know her? Jiang Wan's tone suddenly became nervous. I turned to look at Anya and replied to her in a calm tone. She's a girl, we're friends. As for whether you know her or not, I don't know. Jiang Wan's voice became a little anxious. Female? Li Ziheng, don't be fooled. Women out there are not as simple as you think. You don't need to worry about this. Just take care of your own business. I said impatiently. If there is nothing else, I will hang up first. Just as I was about to hang up, Anya suddenly came over and said in a soft voice, Honey, who are you talking to? I was stunned for a moment, then turned to look at her, but she was blinking and grinning. Jiang Wan's roar came from the other end of the phone. Li Ziheng, I hung up the phone without hesitation. Anya thought I would get angry, but I just glanced at her and said, "Don't do this again in the future." Then I walked straight into the elevator. Anya was slightly stunned, then murmured, "Does this person really have no temper?" She quickly followed and entered the elevator. I didn't say anything in the elevator, but my past with Jiang Wan came to mind. After 5 years of marriage, she would pick me up every Friday to have dinner at her parents' house. My father-in-law Jiang Haisheng always had a cold face and took the opportunity of dinner to find fault with me, saying that I was a gigolo, incompetent, and unworthy of marrying Jiang Wan. Every time, I lowered my head and endured it silently, never refuting. It's not because I don't have a temper, but because I don't want to embarrass Jiang Wan. But now, with the divorce imminent, all this is meaningless, and I don't need to endure these sarcasm anymore. Ding! Elevator door opened and I walked out. At this time, a text message came from my mobile phone. I clicked it and saw that it was from Jiang Wan. "You must come home for dinner tonight. Otherwise, I will not go to the Civil Affairs Bureau to apply for a divorce certificate next Monday." Seeing this message, I sneered. Jiang Wan actually started to use threats? I gently clenched my phone and continued to walk forward indifferently. Chapter 12, Mother-in-law Lu Fongting. After much deliberation, I decided to go. This was not because of Jiang Wan's threat, but because I wanted to take this opportunity to tell my father-in-law and mother-in-law about the divorce in person. Although my relationship with my father-in-law has never been good and he has always been sarcastic to me, my mother-in-law has always been very good to me. For 5 years, she has always stood by me and often scolded Jiang Wan. Every time we meet, my mother-in-law always asks about my well-being and cares about me more than my own mother. Thinking of this, I think that even if I divorce, I should inform her in advance, which is a kind of respect. I turned to Anya and said, "I may not have time to cook tonight, so let's just make do with this." "Okay, I'll make it up tomorrow." Although Anya was a little disappointed, she didn't force it. Instead, she smiled and teased me. "If that's the case, you have to add some dishes to my dinner." As soon as I walked out of the company, Anya suddenly suggested, "It's hard to get a taxi now. How about I take you?" I thought about it and didn't refuse. "Then thank you." Anya smiled brightly as she drove her red Ferrari to take me to my parents-in-law's upscale neighborhood. Before getting out of the car, she joked with me, "Remember to give me a good meal tomorrow." After ringing the doorbell, it was my mother-in-law Lu Fongting who opened the door. She was wearing an apron, holding a spatula in her hand, and her face was full of smiles. "Zihing is here. Come in and sit down, Wanner. Go get some water. There is also a dish of braised shrimp balls. We will have dinner when it is ready." My mother-in-law's enthusiasm warmed my heart. I smiled, changed into slippers, and went into the house. She turned back to the kitchen to continue working, and I followed her to help. In the living room, my father-in-law Jiang Haisheng was sitting cross-legged reading a newspaper as usual, while Jiang Wan was playing with her phone. When she heard my voice, she looked up at me, then lowered her head again. Soon, the last dish was served. I set the table and helped my mother-in-law pull out the chair. "Ziheng is still sensible." My mother-in-law looked at me with satisfaction, then turned around and glared at my father-in-law and Jiang Wan. Unlike these two, who just wait to be served. After dinner started, my father-in-law began to belittle me as usual. His words were full of sarcasm. I was used to it, so I just lowered my head to eat without refutation. But when he got more and more extreme, I put down my chopsticks and said calmly, "Dad, there's no need for you to be so angry. I'm ready to divorce Volnad." As soon as the words fell, the atmosphere at the table froze instantly. Father-in-law was shocked, Jiang Wan's face turned pale, and mother-in-law was stunned. "Divorce? Why do you want a divorce?" After the mother-in-law realized what was happening, her tone was filled with anxiety and distress. She turned around and slapped Jiang Wan hard. "Wanner, did you bully Zihing again?" "Mom, Jiang Wan covered the back of her head, looking aggrieved. "It wasn't me who asked for a divorce. It wasn't you who proposed it. It was Ziheng who took the initiative to propose it. Don't I know him? Unless you did something to hurt him, how could he want a divorce?" The mother-in-law was furious and pointed at Jiang Wan and cursed. Hearing the words, "other women start families," Jiang Wan fell silent. It was obvious that she had thought of something, and her emotions became more complicated. My mother-in-law turned to look at me, with a hint of pleading in her tone. "Ziheng, Mom knows you are sad, but for Mom's sake, can you please not get a divorce? Let's sit down and solve the problem, okay?" I pursed my lips and didn't respond. It wasn't because I was shaken, but because I couldn't bear to make my mother-in-law sad. I always remember how good she was to me. But at this moment, the father-in-law slammed the table and said, Li Ziheng, are you still a man? Threatening Wanner with divorce? Is that reasonable? Don't you know how much Wanner has paid for her career in the past 5 years? Hearing this, Jiangwan lowered her head, but I caught a glimpse of the slight arc of her mouth. That smile made me feel ironic. The mother-in-law was unhappy and retorted directly, Jiang Haisheng, how can you talk like that? Wanner has paid, but Ziheng hasn't paid? If it weren't for him, would Wanner be able to work so peacefully? Shut up. The father-in-law's face darkened, and his tone became more and more impatient. You have spoiled him all these years, and now he has no respect for his elders and wants a divorce. Is this the good son-in-law you raised? The mother-in-law was so angry that her face turned red. Okay, Jiang Haisheng, you are awesome. I don't want to live like this anymore. Ziheng, let's move out. Mother and son can depend on each other. Stop messing around. My father-in-law had a stern face, and his tone was helpless, but also somewhat submissive. Just when the situation was at a stalemate, Jiangwan suddenly stood up and shouted, Li Ziheng, is this the result you want? Are you going to make our family a mess? Don't you just want a divorce? Fine. I'll go to the Civil Affairs Bureau with you next Monday. Now, get out of here. Get out of this house. Pa. Before she could finish her words, the mother-in-law slapped Jiangwan hard on the face and angrily scolded, You bastard. Why did I give birth to such an ignorant thing like you? The mother-in-law was so angry that she was shaking all over. She pointed at Jiangwan and scolded, Look how sensible Ziheng is. Now that he's gone, are you happy? When he starts a family with another woman in the future, it will be too late for you to regret it. Jiangwan covered her face and said nothing more. Her eyes were slightly red, but she lowered her head stubbornly and refused to look at anyone. Chapter 13, Have you been here all along? Mom, you hit me for him? Jiangwan covered her face, eyes full of grievance and disbelief. From childhood to adulthood, her mother had never hit her, but today she slapped her for Li Ziheng, an outsider. Tears welled up in an instant and slid down her cheeks. She glared at me and then rushed out. When she passed by me, the resentful look in her eyes made me sneer in my heart. Anya, where are you going? Lu Fongting shouted hurriedly, but she failed to make Jiangwan turn around. She walked quickly to the door, then stopped and looked at me with a hint of pleading in her eyes. Ziheng, go and take a look. I'm afraid she will do something stupid. I nodded. Okay, Mom. Don't worry, I will go. After that, I turned and walked out the door, but I breathed a sigh of relief in my heart. What I feared the most when I came here this time was actually my mother-in-law. She was so good to me. I always felt indebted to her for caring and protecting me for the past 5 years. The divorce did not embarrass her too much, which was an unexpected result. Fortunately, the divorce has been brought up in person. Jiang Haisheng will most likely agree. As for my mother-in-law, although she is very reluctant, this is my marriage with Jiangwan after all, and she cannot interfere too much. I walked along the path in the community and soon found Jiangwan next to the flower bed. She was squatting on the ground, holding her phone and wiping her tears. This scene was very familiar to me. Every time she quarreled with her father-in-law, she would hide here and cry. I subconsciously wanted to walk over and say a few words of comfort, but just as I was about to open my mouth, I heard her on the phone. Her voice was very soft, but I could hear the content clearly. Chung Hao, just take care of your family affairs. I'm here at the company, so don't worry. I can help you with the money issue. I paused. A self-deprecating sneer appeared on my lips. She already has Chung Hao. Does she still need me to comfort her? Turning around, I took out my phone and sent a message to my mother-in-law, telling her that Jiangwan was downstairs and not to worry. After sending the message, I left the community directly. As soon as I walked to the door, I saw the familiar red Ferrari parked on the side of the road. Inside the car, Anya rolled down the window and waved at me with a smile. Master, get in the car. Have you been waiting for me here? I was a little surprised. I didn't expect that she didn't leave. Anya's eyebrows curved. Yes, are you touched? You really don't have to wait. I shook my head helplessly, thinking that she was overdoing it. But she said seriously, I think it's necessary. Then she added seriously, I'm almost starving. You have to give me something to eat when we get back. These words made me slightly stunned. Just when I was about to say something, I found that her eyes suddenly glanced down, and then a blush appeared on her pretty face. I shook my head and agreed. Okay, I'll go back and cook noodles for you. Then I sat in the passenger seat, closed the door, and fastened my seatbelt. The roar of the red supercar's engine cut through the night, and the car quickly drove away from the gate of the community. However, at this moment, I saw a familiar car driving out of the community from the corner of my eye. It was Jiangwan. Her car just drove to the intersection, and her eyes fell on us. She recognized me at a glance, especially the seat sitting in the passenger seat. Jiangwan was stunned. After a moment, she clenched her teeth and looked so complicated that I felt suffocated. The car passed us quickly, but I could almost feel her burning anger. I didn't pay attention to it. I just turned my head and looked at the road ahead. At this moment, my cell phone rang. It was Jiangwan's call. I sighed and hung up, but she didn't give up and called me 3 more times. I hung up every time she got through. Sure enough, after a while, I received 2 Feishan messages. The first one was, Li Ziheng, you divorced not because of Chung Hao, but because you had another woman outside, right? The second one was even more aggressive. Are you doing me justice by doing this? Are you divorcing me just to make your mistress your wife so that she can have a legitimate status? Looking at these messages, I just felt cold in my heart. I put away my phone and did not reply. The red Ferrari continued to drive in the night, with only the roar of the engine in the car. I leaned back in my chair, closed my eyes and thought, but my mind was very clear. Since this marriage has come to an end, why bother to entangle with it anymore? Chapter 14. Goddessin is funny inside. The first message was sent successfully, but the second message was marked with a red exclamation mark. Jiangwan stared at her phone for a second, then angrily realized that I had blocked her. Asshole! Jiangwan stamped her feet in anger, her face full of rage. She clenched her phone tightly, her chest heaving violently, her eyes reddened, and she stared angrily at the empty night road ahead. She wanted to catch up with the red supercar, stop me and the woman in the car, slap the woman who seduced her man, and let her know that I was her property. Unfortunately, her thoughts were just thoughts, and the supercar had already disappeared into the night. Jiangwan gritted her teeth, tears welling up in her eyes. Li Ziheng, I will never forgive your betrayal. Meanwhile, inside the red supercar, Anya's voice never stopped. Master, are you still upset about your ex-wife? But I think with your situation, getting divorced is like a fish swimming in the sea. You can find any woman you want. A woman with poor eyesight like my ex-wife's sister deserves to lose you, and you should pay more attention to the people and scenery around you. She kept talking, and when she saw that I closed my eyes and didn't respond, she raised her voice and imitated the delicate tone. Brother Yudi, why did you close your eyes? Open your eyes and look at this fairy. Your eyes are definitely not empty. I opened my eyes reluctantly, glanced at her, suppressed my smile, and said in a deep voice, Anya, you are the goddess in the heart of the male god of Yunqing. Can you take care of your image? But she smugly winked at me and said, since you know I'm a goddess, think carefully about whether you want to seize this opportunity to pursue me. Enough, I said, stop teasing me. I couldn't help but hold my forehead. Anya laughed even more happily. What's wrong with teasing you? If you say that again, I will push you into the car and forcefully kiss you. I was speechless for a while and couldn't help but wonder, what expressions would the men in Yunqing have if they knew that Goddessin was actually a funny person? The atmosphere in the car was made more relaxed by her. She talked and laughed to herself, and I responded from time to time. The suppressed emotions caused by Jiangwan and my mother-in-law had long been swept away. After returning to the villa, Anya immediately rushed upstairs to take a shower. Before leaving, she did not forget to urge me. Master, don't forget to cook noodles for me. Remember to add eggs. I couldn't help but smile bitterly as I watched her disappear so quickly. Who is the young master? He called me the young master and told me to do things? I had no choice but to go into the kitchen. 10 minutes later, the noodles were ready. I went upstairs and knocked on her door. The noodles are ready. Eat them while they're hot. Just as he was about to turn around and go downstairs, Anya's voice came from the room. Master, the door is not locked. Come in and help me. I pushed the door open and walked in. I saw her room was full of pink and white, full of girlish atmosphere. The voice in the bathroom sounded again. Help me get a white lace nightgown from the closet. I walked to the closet and opened it, only to be stunned by what I saw. The closet was filled with all kinds of translucent pajamas and nightgowns, and even matching underwear, each one more daring than the last. My old face turned red, and I immediately walked out quickly. You can take the clothes yourself. I'll go downstairs first. I closed the door without waiting for her response. After going downstairs, I was sitting down to eat noodles when I heard footsteps coming up the stairs. When I looked up, I saw Anya walking down wrapped in a bath towel. Her shoulders, collarbones, and long legs were all in sight. Her skin was white and translucent, like a carefully carved work of art. I was stunned for a second, then quickly lowered my head and continued eating noodles, pretending I didn't see anything. Anya sat down, picked up the noodles and took a bite, then said with a smile, "Master, I didn't expect that you can not only cook but also be so delicious." I almost choked when I heard this. I ignored her teasing, finished my meal quickly, and got up to go upstairs. "Don't move the dishes. I'll clean them up tomorrow morning." After saying that, I hurried upstairs. I heard Anya's chuckle from behind. This young master is quite innocent. Sitting back on the bed, her beautiful figure suddenly appeared in my mind. I quickly shook my head to get rid of the thought. I closed my eyes and sighed in my heart. This woman is really good at flirting. Chapter 15, you say divorce, so what? Why? On Monday morning, Anya and I went out together, but we didn't go directly to the company today. Before leaving, I sent a text message to Jiangwan, reminding her not to forget to go to the Civil Affairs Bureau to handle the divorce procedures today. As soon as the text message was sent, Anya suddenly stopped the car on the side of the road. I turned to look at her in confusion, only to see her unbuckling her seatbelt and raising her eyebrows at me. "Master, you don't have any tacit understanding at all. Get out of the car." "What?" I asked, frowning. Anya rolled her eyes at me unhappily. "If you want the horse to run, you have to feed it first, master. Don't you feel hungry?" I had no choice but to follow her out of the car. There was a Sichuan noodle restaurant next to where she parked. After entering, she ordered 2 bowls of beef noodles, one of which was spicy. I didn't think much about it, thinking she liked spicy food. However, when the noodles were served, she pushed the spicy bowl in front of me. I was stunned for a moment and asked, "How do you know I like spicy food?" Anya raised her head with a firm look in her eyes. "I'm not blind. When you cooked these 2 days, you used very little chili, but you ate it every time." Hearing her say this, my heart warmed. Anya could remember details that even Jiang one had never noticed. After these 2 days of contact, I found that although Anya always said nonsense, she was surprisingly thoughtful. The spicy beef noodles tasted surprisingly good. Although I don't usually like noodles, I finished a whole bowl in one go. "How is it? The noodle shop I chose, the food is good, right?" Anya asked with a smile, a hint of pride in her eyes. I nodded. "Yeah, it's delicious." She wiped her hands with a tissue, then suddenly leaned over and gently wiped the oil stains from the corners of my mouth with a tissue. I was stunned, and I was a little uncomfortable with this intimate action. "Don't do this next time, or people will misunderstand you." I reminded him softly. "What misunderstanding?" Anya blinked and smiled nonchalantly. "Master, don't think too much. Even if someone misunderstands me, so what? I don't mind." Before I could respond, a text message alert sounded. I took out my phone and found that it was a message from Jiangwan. "Li Ziheng, you want a divorce just like that? Why? Since you have been unfaithful to me, I will let you feel the feeling of being betrayed by your wife." I couldn't help but sneer when I saw this message. She actually accused me of being unfaithful? She was the one who really betrayed me. Now that I filed for divorce, she is blaming me instead. Is she trying to clear herself? Anya noticed that my expression was not right and asked tentatively, "Did your ex-wife bully you again?" I sighed and didn't answer directly. Anya continued, "Master, I think you are a bit like a little man." "What do you mean?" I looked at her puzzled. "Don't be impatient. When I say little man, I don't mean little. It's you who is too much like a little woman. You are always bullied and you don't say anything. Your explanation really doesn't make me feel comfortable at all." I smiled bitterly and shook my head. Anya stopped teasing me and asked seriously, "Are we still going to the Civil Affairs Bureau today?" I put away my phone and said coldly, "No need for now. Let's go to the company first." After a pause, I added, "By the way, help me prepare the procedures for filing for divorce. I don't know much about this." "Okay, master, I'll take care of it." Anya stood up with a smile and helped me pay for the meal. Then we drove to the company together. After arriving at the company, I took the initiative to take on a business task. In order to familiarize myself with the business in recent days, I have read all the customer information, so when the manager assigned the task this time, I took it without hesitation. "Ziheng, this client's birthday is today, and we'll celebrate at Mantiangsing Entertainment KTV at 4 p.m. I've asked for a spot for you, and you must coax her when you go there and try to continue the discussion on this cooperation." The manager patted my shoulder and advised with a look of trust. I nodded and agreed. "Okay, manager, I will do my best to complete the task. However, When I opened the customer information and saw the customer's name, I couldn't help but frown. Song Yi? How could it be her? Song Yi is Jiang Wan's best friend, or her mortal enemy. 3 years ago, she kissed me forcibly because she was drunk, and after I rejected her, she and Jiang Wan had a falling out. It seems that this mission is not easy to complete. I rubbed my eyebrows, feeling a little uneasy. At 4 p.m., I showed up at the door of the private room of Manhwa Entertainment KTV on time. When I opened the door, I was greeted by harsh music and a strong smell of alcohol. Song Yi was sitting in the middle of the box, surrounded by people. She was wearing a black slim dress, smiling charmingly, holding a glass of red wine in her hand, and looking very proud. When she saw me come in, she was stunned for a moment. Then she smiled meaningfully. "Hey, isn't this Li Ziheng?" Song Yi put down her wine glass, stood up, and walked over. "Why, Jiangwan is willing to let you out." Hearing these sarcastic words, I frowned slightly but still remained polite. "Miss Song, today is your birthday. I wish you a happy birthday first." "Happy birthday?" Song Yi chuckled, with a hint of teasing in her eyes. "Li Ziheng, I haven't seen you for 3 years. You have learned a lot about the ways of the world. I heard that you're working in Yunhai now. Wow, you are quite promising." I could hear the sarcasm in her words, but I didn't intend to argue with her. I came here to solve the problem, not to quarrel. "Ms. Song, the previous problems with our company's products were our mistakes. I have come here today to apologize to you and hope you can give us a chance to continue our cooperation," I said in a calm tone, neither humble nor arrogant. Song Yi looked at me with a half smile and suddenly took a step closer, lowering her voice a bit. "Li Ziheng, you know what? I always thought you were a very interesting person." "What do you mean?" I subconsciously took a step back and kept my distance. She smiled nonchalantly, with a hint of provocation in her eyes. "That woman Jiangwan has always treated you as her personal property. She really thought you would just be trampled under her feet. Now, I heard that you're going to divorce. How about it? Have you finally figured it out?" Her words made my heart sink. I thought Song Yi would cause trouble, but I didn't expect her to directly bring up my divorce. "This is my private matter, Miss Song. Don't worry about it," I responded coldly. "Hey, don't be angry." Song Yi raised her glass and shook it provocatively. "Since you're here, drink with me. Today is my birthday." Her tone was strong, and her eyes were more like a challenge. I knew that if I didn't go along with her, today's cooperation would be over. Helplessly, I took the glass she handed over and clinked glasses with hers. As the wine took my sip, I had a vague feeling that today might not be so simple. Sure enough, the next second, Song Yi deliberately moved closer to me and said in an ambiguous voice, "Li Ziheng, I've already seen that you're not the kind of woman like Jiangwan. She is not worthy of you at all. It's better." Before she finished her words, the door of the box was suddenly pushed open. A familiar figure stood at the door, staring at us angrily. "It's Jiangwan." Chapter 16. "Sorry, sister. Your husband is too fierce." Working hours go by quickly. In a blink of an eye, it was already 3:30 in the afternoon. Because he was going to meet the client Song Yi, Li Ziheng greeted the manager in advance. After get off work, he took a taxi and went straight to Manhwa Entertainment KTV. According to the message sent by the manager, Li Ziheng found the box where Song Yi was. After knocking on the door, Li Ziheng pushed it open and walked in. As soon as he entered, he saw a few familiar faces. There were 8 people in the box, but Li Ziheng's eyes were almost instantly locked on Song Yi. Song Yi was wearing a white tight t-shirt and a pair of ultra-short shorts. Her long wavy hair was casually draped behind her head, and her face was delicately made up. Compared to the youthfulness and immaturity 3 years ago, she now has a more mature air. Song Yi is good-looking. According to Jiang Wan, Song Yi was the most beautiful girl in their class during college. In addition to Song Yi, there were 7 other people. Among these 7 people, Li Ziheng had some vague impression of 3 of them. They should be her college classmates. Li Ziheng didn't recognize the other 4 people, and he probably thought they were new friends she met later. Li Ziheng. When Song Yi saw Li Ziheng pushing the door open, she was stunned for a moment. It seemed that he had not expected that Li Ziheng would show up at his birthday party. Li Ziheng nodded and smiled, stating his purpose. "Hello, Miss Song. I am a sales representative from Yunhai. I came here to discuss a cooperation project with you." However, he talked for a long time, but Song Yi seemed not to listen much. Song Yi's eyes flickered, and a meaningful smile appeared on the corner of her mouth. "You came out to work? Does Jiangwan know about this?" "Big birthday boy. Today is your birthday party. Can you put your work aside for now? Can we still have fun together? That's right, Miss Song. You are really going too far. We came all the way here to celebrate with you. You won't abandon us to go back to work, will you? This salesman is quite handsome. How about introducing him to me? I happen to be single recently. The young men and women in the box started to make a fuss one after another. Song Yi frowned and shouted impatiently. Shut up, everyone. Pause the song first. As soon as the words fell, the box fell silent. Song Yi waved to Li Ziheng, indicating that Li Ziheng should sit next to her. In order to complete the task, Li Ziheng could only nod and walk over. As soon as they sat down, Song Yi poured 3 glasses of wine, 1 white, 1 red, and 1 beer. Song Yi put down the bottle of wine with a playful look in her eyes. Today is my birthday. You can talk about business, but you have to drink 3 glasses of wine first to show your sincerity. As soon as these words were spoken, anyone with a discerning eye could tell that Song Yi was deliberately making things difficult for Li Ziheng. Business is discussed over wine. 3 glasses of wine show sincerity. This is the basic respect for customers. I see that the salesperson doesn't seem to have much work experience. Shouldn't he take the initiative to pour the wine and toast you 3 glasses? Handsome guy, if you want to talk about business, drink some wine. After drinking, forget about talking about business. You can even talk about love. The young men and women in the box have already started to make a fuss. Li Ziheng's face looked a little ugly, but for the sake of work, he gritted his teeth, picked up a glass of beer, and drank it all. Next comes red wine, and finally white wine. After 3 glasses of wine, Li Ziheng suddenly felt a burning sensation in his stomach. Drinking on an empty stomach makes it easy to get drunk, especially when you're drinking 3 different types of alcohol. After a few minutes, Li Ziheng felt a little dizzy. Seeing Li Ziheng drink 3 cups in a row, the young men and women in the box immediately cheered. Brother, you can drink quite a lot. Come on, I'll toast you a glass. If you don't drink, you're being disrespectful. Handsome guy's face is worthless. He just drank 3 cups. His stomach must be feeling uncomfortable, right? Come, eat a grape to relieve the pressure. Zhang Qian, how dare you talk like that? Even if you want to flirt with a guy, you can't step on me, right? Ha ha ha. The atmosphere in the box became lively again. Faced with the crowd's booing, Li Ziheng just responded with a polite smile. At this time, Song Yi scanned the QR code with her mobile phone to order a song and handed the microphone to Li Ziheng, asking Li Ziheng to sing a love song with her. Li Ziheng subconsciously wanted to refuse, only because after being with Jiang Wan, he never sang love songs with the opposite sex. But thinking that he was about to divorce Jiang Wan and that he was also there for work, he took the microphone. The love song that Song Yi ordered was I'm Going to Marry You Today, which was the song that Li Ziheng and Jiang Wan sang on the wedding stage when they got married. Li Ziheng had already memorized the lyrics, and as soon as he started singing, he amazed everyone in the box. After singing a love song, Li Ziheng felt dizzy. But the people in the box were not going to let him go, and as soon as he finished singing, they started toasting him. Li Ziheng was overwhelmed and drank 1 cup after another, and soon he was drunk. At this time, Song Yi took the initiative to come over and put her arms around Li Ziheng's neck under the pretext of discussing cooperation. Before Li Ziheng could react, she suddenly pushed Li Ziheng onto the sofa and kissed him aggressively. Crack! The sound of camera shutters woke Li Ziheng up. He wanted to resist, but Song Yi hugged his neck tightly like an octopus. The domineering and extremely aggressive kiss almost suffocated Li Ziheng. The booing around never stopped, and some people even recorded the duration of the kiss as a prank. Li Ziheng wanted to get up and leave, but at this moment, he had a splitting headache and sat weakly on the sofa. Song Yi sat beside him, her fair legs crossed, her eyes flashing with a look that Li Ziheng couldn't see clearly. Li Ziheng, does this kiss feel familiar? Is it exactly the same as it was 3 years ago? Song Yi's voice came into his ears, and Li Ziheng wanted to speak, but suddenly he felt a severe dizziness and then lost consciousness. Send me the video of the duet and kiss between him and me just now. Song Yi turned up the temperature of the air conditioner a few degrees, and then asked her friend for the video that the friend had just recorded. After receiving the video, Song Yi asked 2 boys to help send Li Ziheng to her car. KTV downstairs. All expenses for tonight are on me. Just enjoy yourself. I won't accompany you anymore. Bye. Song Yi waved to the 2 boys and then got into the cab. After a while, the car drove away for a long distance. Oh my God, You value women over friendship. A boy complained. The other boy laughed with glee. Song-yi and Jiang-won were classmates in college, and the three of them knew each other. He knew that Jiang-won and Song-yi were best friends. Although he didn't know why they had a falling out 3 years ago, he was really surprised that Song-yi forcibly kissed her best friend's husband in public today and took the husband away. But he did not intend to tell Jiang-won about this matter, but waited to see what happened next. Half an hour later, in Song-yi's private apartment, looking at Li Ziheng lying on the bed, who had been stripped naked by her, Song-yi climbed up decisively and took some intimate photos. Then, she sent the photos she had taken and the video of the chorus and kissing to Jiang-won. At the same time, she held Li Ziheng's fingers tightly, took a photo, edited a piece of content, and posted it on WeChat Moments. There is no man I cannot get if I set my eyes on him. As soon as the circle of friends was sent, there were 7 or 8 likes and comments. Bye. 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 The Fission message notification sound continued to ring. One of the messages was sent by her younger sister, which was nothing but complaints about her being too obsessed with love and abandoning her sisters for a handsome guy. The rest, without exception, were sent by Jiang-won. Song-yi read it with great interest. The message sent by Jiang-won was full of gunpowder, but Song-yi was not angry. Instead, she felt a sense of revenge. She tapped the screen quickly with her fingers, edited the message, and clicked send. I'm sorry, your husband is so hot. I don't have time to reply your message. If you have anything to say, let's talk tomorrow. Unterstrich x 001 0 unterstrich 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 unterstrich x 0. Chapter 17. Being a substitute for 5 years. City Center. A large flat with 3 bedrooms and a living room. This is the wedding room of Li Ziheng and Jiang-won. They have lived together in this room for 5 years. But at this moment, in the bedroom of the bridal chamber, Jiang-won smashed everything that could be smashed. Li Ziheng, you bastard. How could you cheat on me? Jiang-won's eyes were red, and tears rolled down her eyes uncontrollably. She muttered over and over again, but she also threw things over and over again to vent her anger. She felt resentment towards Li Ziheng, but at the same time, she also loved him. After 5 years of living together, she is not heartless. So how could she not have feelings for Li Ziheng? When Li Ziheng proposed divorce, her heart ached, but she firmly believed that Li Ziheng would live a miserable life without her. After all, Li Ziheng's money was originally given to her parents as a betrothal gift. Without money and no one to shelter him, one can imagine how Li Ziheng's life was. Therefore, she firmly believed that Li Ziheng would regret it. He will definitely admit his mistakes to himself, give in to himself, and finally come back to himself. But she didn't expect that Li Ziheng not only did not bow to her, but also hung out with her former best friend. The more she thought about it, the more uncomfortable she felt. Jiang-won changed her clothes and hurried out the door. After leaving home, she first drove to where Song-yi used to live. As a former best friend, she naturally knew Song-yi's address. But to her disappointment, Song-yi actually sold the house she used to live in, and she didn't know where she lived now. She spent an hour contacting almost all of her former college classmates and finally found out Song-yi's current address. As she was rushing to Song-yi's house, a loud thunderclap suddenly sounded in the sky, and the next moment, heavy rain poured down. On a rainy night, Jiang-won was driving, feeling extremely uncomfortable. She felt suffocated when she thought that Li Ziheng was having sex with Song-yi. She drove very fast and arrived at the community where Song-yi lived in just 10 minutes. A few minutes later, she appeared outside Song-yi's house, all wet. Ding dong, ding dong. The doorbell kept ringing urgently. Song-yi, who had fallen asleep a long time ago, was woken up. She climbed out of the bed with sleepy eyes and half her clothes exposed. Walked out of the room and opened the door. When Song-yi saw that the person coming was Jiang-won, she was obviously stunned. Oh! After a brief moment of daze, Song-yi raised the corner of her lips in a teasing arc. You came here so soon? At this moment, Jiang-won's eyes were red and her face was full of anger, like an angry lion. Pa! She slapped Song-yi hard on the face, her eyes full of hatred. Song-yi, Li Ziheng is my husband. How could you do such a vulgar and shameless thing? Song-yi was stunned by this unexpected slap. She covered her face, and it took her a long time to react. Then her pretty face sank, and she pounced on him. What's wrong with your husband? You obviously don't love him, right? If you don't love him, why do you force him to stay by your side? Song Yi's words made Jiangwan think back to 5 years ago. 5 years ago, Chung Hao left her and went abroad to study alone. She couldn't bear the pain of a broken heart, so she squatted on the roadside and cried, and then she met Li Ziheng. Then, Li Ziheng began to pursue her. At first, she didn't intend to agree, but later, her sisters gave her advice and told her that the fastest way to get out of a relationship is to get into a new one. For this reason, Jiangwan agreed to be Li Ziheng's girlfriend. She still remembers that the moment she agreed, Li Ziheng was as happy as a child who got candy. Pa! Song Yi slapped him back. At the same time, he taunted her coldly. Jiangwan, I'm not afraid to tell you that I fell in love with Li Ziheng 5 years ago. I've always wanted to pursue him, but it's because of you that he's always rejected me. Now, Chung Hao has returned, and you have recruited him into the company. You already have Chung Hao, so why do you still monopolize Li Ziheng's love? Since you don't love him, then why are you still so selfish? Why are you unwilling to help me and Li Ziheng? The two men were fighting wildly, not noticing that a figure had appeared behind the door. Li Ziheng's face turned pale, and he woke up when he heard the doorbell. But he didn't know how to face Song Yi, so he chose to pretend to be dead. However, the noise at the door attracted him, so he gritted his teeth and walked out. Because of the perspective, Song Yi did not notice Li Ziheng behind her, but Jiang Wan saw it. Li Ziheng. The moment she saw Li Ziheng, she was startled, her hands stopped moving, and her face froze. Song Yi also stopped. She turned to look at Li Ziheng, who had been standing at the door at some point, and her eyes lit up. Then she took the initiative to move forward and put her arms around Li Ziheng's waist. Her actions were as intimate as possible. Song Yi asked softly, "Baby, are you awake? Sorry, did we disturb you?" If it were in the past, Li Ziheng would definitely push her away immediately and tell her that he was Jiang Wan's husband and asked her to respect herself. But this time, Li Ziheng did not push her away. Li Ziheng's eyes were dark and unclear, staring straight into Jiang Wan's eyes. Is what he just said true? Jiang Wan opened her mouth, but didn't know how to answer. What Song Yi said was true, and she couldn't deny it, but, oh, Li Ziheng smiled. But that smile was filled with a hint of heartbreaking self-mockery. Jiang Wan, we're done. It doesn't matter if you don't want a divorce. I've already filed for divorce. Now, please leave and don't disturb us. Hearing this, Song Yi was overjoyed. She turned to Jiang Wan with a smug look on her face and shouted, "Did you hear that? Ziheng told you not to disturb us. Hurry up and leave." Jiang Wan's face was pale, and her whole body seemed to be broken. With red eyes, she stared at Li Ziheng stubbornly and asked, "Li Ziheng, are you really with her? Does it have anything to do with you?" Li Ziheng looked indifferent. He originally thought that even if Jiang Wan had changed her heart, she at least once loved him. But the reality is, from the very beginning, Jiang Wan was not with me because she liked me. It's funny that Li Ziheng has been Chung Hao's substitute for 5 years. No wonder after Chung Hao came back, Jiang Wan was not willing to go home or stay with him. It turns out that he was the shameful third party from the beginning to the end. At the beginning, Chung Hao once said on the phone that the one who is not loved is the mistress. At that time, Li Ziheng could still refute and scold him righteously. Thinking about it now, it's really ridiculous. Looking at Li Ziheng's indifferent attitude, Jiang Wan felt very wronged. But when she saw Song Yi's smug and mocking look, Jiang Wan felt very angry again. She bit her lower lip lightly, and her tone suddenly became a little strong. "Li Ziheng, is this your way of taking revenge on me?" Faced with Jiang Wan's questioning, Li Ziheng did not respond or explain. In this situation, is there any point in explaining it? Seeing Li Ziheng remain silent, Jiang Wan gritted her teeth and said hatefully, "Li Ziheng, I will definitely make you regret this. Definitely." After saying that, she left quickly without looking back. Chapter 18. Li Ziheng, you really cheated? After Jiang Wan left, Li Ziheng tried to push away Song Yi, who was still hugging him tightly. But Song Yi was like a dogskin plaster, which stuck back as soon as it was pushed away. Li Ziheng sighed helplessly. She's gone, there's no need to act anymore." Hearing this, Song Yi was stunned for a moment, then raised her head, stared at Li Ziheng with burning eyes, and said seriously, "Do you think I was acting just now?" Li Ziheng said firmly, "What else? We haven't had much contact, so it's impossible for you to fall in love with me. At most, it's just a liking for me. Do you believe in love at first sight? Song Yi's eyes softened. She closed the door casually and then pressed Li Ziheng against the wall. Li Ziheng was very resistant, but because the alcohol had not yet worn off, he felt weak and powerless all over. Song Yi stared at Li Ziheng's eyes with burning eyes. When I first saw you, my heart was moved, but because of Jiangwan, I didn't dare to show it. Later, when the three of us were together, I would deliberately get close to you, but you always kept your distance from me, which made me very angry. 3 years ago, I was drunk, so I couldn't help myself and forcefully kissed you, but I don't regret it. Although I had a falling out with Jiangwan because of it, at least, I kissed you. Even if you block me afterwards and never give me the chance to get close to you again, I still don't regret it. After saying that, Song Yi tried to kiss Li Ziheng forcefully again, but Li Ziheng turned his head away to prevent Song Yi from succeeding. Song Yi was quite strong. He grabbed Li Ziheng's neck and turned his head back. Then he whispered, Li Ziheng, you should know that I learned karate before. Be good, or I don't mind using force. After saying that, she kissed Li Ziheng's lips without any hesitation. Her kiss was as overbearing as ever. Li Ziheng gritted his teeth and made a final resistance, but Song Yi suddenly exerted force on the hand that was pinching his neck. Li Ziheng felt pain and let out a muffled groan. It was because of this muffled groan that Song Yi found the opportunity to deepen the kiss. After a long time, their lips parted. Li Ziheng rubbed his temple and gasped for breath. Song Yi on the opposite side was smiling charmingly. Li Ziheng, for 3 years, I've been unable to let you go, but I have never thought of actively looking for you. This time, you came to me on your own initiative. Since you have provoked me, I will never let you go this time. Song Yi smiled, but her eyes were particularly hot. You are mine. The next day, as soon as daybreak, Li Ziheng fled from Song Yi's house in shame. Last night, he forced himself to sit in the living room of Song Yi's house all night. It's not that he didn't want to escape overnight, but Song Yi was too crazy. Wherever he went, Song Yi followed him. He wanted to leave, but Song Yi blocked him at the door and told him that he could leave, but had to wait until dawn. In her words, if she left now, Jiangwan might be waiting for her downstairs. After Li Ziheng's persuasion failed, he had no choice but to stay. But no matter how sleepy or uncomfortable he was, he had no intention of sleeping, because he was very suspicious that once he fell asleep, this crazy woman Song Yi might do something even crazier. Fortunately, after dawn, Song Yi did not stop him and let him go. After leaving Song Yi's house, Li Ziheng stopped a taxi at the gate of the community and returned to the Riverside Villa. After getting in the car, he took out his cell phone, only to find that it had been turned off at some point. He thought his phone was out of battery, but when he tried to turn it on, he found that it still had 50% battery. As soon as the phone was turned on, reminders of missed calls, text messages, and phishing messages came one after another. Li Ziheng was tired and sleepy at the moment, and his head was aching. He had no intention of looking through the phone and just stuffed it into his pocket. Little did he know that when he got into the car to leave, in a black sedan across the street from the community, a pair of eyes, also bloodshot from a sleepless night, were silently watching all this. Li Ziheng, you really cheated on me? A hoarse voice sounded. There was strong resentment and endless anger in his voice. It's Jiangwan. After she left last night, she waited in the car all night. I waited until dawn before I saw Li Ziheng leave the community. Last night, Li Ziheng spent the night at Song Yi's house. She had no doubt that Li Ziheng had done something wrong to her last night. Just at this moment, a phone call came. The 2 words Chung Hao were clearly written on the caller's note. Jiangwan pressed the answer button without thinking. Wanner, I have finished my family affairs. I will arrive in Yunqing at 10 o'clock this morning. Are you free? Is it convenient for you to pick me up? Available. That's great, Wanner. I came back this time and brought you good news. I'll tell you when we meet. Well, I'll pick you up at 10. Okay, I'll wait for you. After hanging up the phone, Jiangwan thought about it and decided to go home first. She went out and got caught in the rain last night, so she looks particularly miserable now. She didn't want Chung Hao to see her in such an embarrassing state. After returning home and taking a hot bath, she set the alarm and, after resting for 2 hours, went out and drove straight to the airport. The other side. Li Ziheng has returned to the Riverside Villa. But as soon as he walked in, he was scolded by Anya. "Oh, master, you still remember to go home? If you don't come back, I'm going to call the police." There was a smile on Anya's delicate face. But that smile inexplicably made Li Ziheng feel uneasy. Li Ziheng smiled awkwardly and explained, "I drank too much last night." Upon hearing this, Anya frowned slightly and asked, "Drunk? With whom? Did anyone take advantage of you?" "One of our company's partners happened to have a birthday yesterday, so," Li Ziheng explained patiently, and then added, "Are you overthinking it? I'm a man. How can I be bullied?" After listening to Li Ziheng's explanation, Anya secretly breathed a sigh of relief. But she said, "Master, there are many bad women out there. They will only bully you. Only I am truly good to you." Li Ziheng gave Anya a speechless look, changed into his home slippers, walked past Anya, and headed straight towards the corridor. Anya stood up and said, "Master, I see you look quite bad. How about taking a day off today?" "No, I just need to rest for a while." Li Ziheng refused. He went upstairs without looking back. Watching Li Ziheng disappear in the corridor, Anya sniffed, frowned, and murmured, "Why does the young master smell like women's perfume? Damn it, who on earth is it? How dare you seduce my innocent young master?" Anya puffed her cheeks, very angry. She hesitated for a moment, and finally rushed upstairs to find Li Ziheng to ask for clarification. Li Ziheng's door was not locked. Not only the bedroom door, but even the glass door of the bathroom was not locked. Therefore, when Anya angrily pushed open the bathroom door and asked Li Ziheng why he smelled like women's perfume, Li Ziheng's face turned green with fright. Li Ziheng covered his crotch in embarrassment and shouted angrily, "Anya, what are you crazy about? Can't you see I'm taking a shower? Why are you so fierce? I've already seen it anyway." Anya knew she was in the wrong, so she pouted and glanced at Li Ziheng a few times before leaving the bathroom in dismay. Chapter 19, Wanner. "Don't you still believe me?" 2.5 hours later, Li Ziheng, with a gloomy face, went downstairs and went to Yunhai Company with Anya. Soon, the car stopped in the parking lot downstairs of the company. Li Ziheng insisted that Anya enter the company first, and he would enter 5 minutes after Anya. "The reason for doing this is mainly because I don't want to cause unnecessary trouble and scandals." After all, when he officially joined the business department, curious colleagues came to ask about his relationship with Anya. At that time, Li Ziheng's answer was that they were just friends, and he said that he got the job thanks to Anya's relationship. Colleagues did not doubt this, because there was no work experience in Li Ziheng's resume, and a large company like Yinhai would not recruit a newbie with no work experience. "Ziheng, you are really good." The eldest daughter of the Song family is notoriously difficult to deal with. "I didn't expect that you only went there once yesterday, and you were able to deal with her." As soon as I walked to my workstation and sat down, the business manager came over to greet me enthusiastically and praised me generously. Upon hearing this, colleagues in the same group also looked at him in surprise. "Just good luck." Li Ziheng nodded with a smile, but I couldn't help smiling bitterly in my heart. For this mission, he was forcibly kissed by Song Yi for the second time, and was even stripped naked, almost losing his virginity. In my mind, I can't help but recall the past. His ex-wife Jiangwan had severe misophobia. Even after marriage, the two of them would at most hold hands and give each other a simple hug. Apart from that, there was no other deeper contact. His first kiss was forcibly taken away by Song Yi 3 years ago. This is also why Jiangwan became furious and broke up with Song Yi. The second time they kissed, it was still Song Yi, and she was still forced to kiss. Come to think of it, it's quite funny. After chatting with the manager for a while, Li Ziheng continued to focus on the work at hand. The workload is not heavy, it's just organizing some customer information. Cloud City Airport. Jiangwan, looking a little tired and with obvious bloodshot eyes, stood at the exit, staring ahead with a dull gaze. Everything that happened last night was still replaying in her mind. When she thought that Li Ziheng had betrayed her and had sex with Song Yi all night, she felt depressed. That feeling was like her favorite toy was taken away by someone one day, and it was hard for her to accept it. Warner, perhaps she was lost in thought, so she didn't even notice Chung Hao walking in front of her. Chung Hao's hand naturally covered her fair forehead. "You look very pale, are you sick?" Chung Hao's concerned voice rang out. Jiangwan was startled and hurriedly took a step back. She only breathed a sigh of relief when she saw that the man in front of her was Chung Hao. Jiangwan raised a smile at the corner of her lips. "It's nothing, I just couldn't sleep last night and didn't get enough rest." Chung Hao asked, "Is it because of the company's affairs?" "I guess so." Jiangwan didn't want to talk about Li Ziheng, so she just nodded evasively. Don't worry. I said I would help you, and I will definitely help you. This time I'm going home to take care of some family matters. After a pause, Chung Hao suddenly smiled and said, on the other hand, I also want to ask my uncle for help. Um, Jiang Wan frowned slightly and stared at Chung Hao with some curiosity. My uncle is in the real estate business and is planning to invest in other industries in the near future. So I went to him and wanted him to invest in Zhang's. Jiang Wan frowned even more deeply. What Zhang's needs is partners in business, not investment. Besides, Zhang's funds are sufficient. Wanner, you didn't get enough rest. Has your brain reaction speed become slower? Chung Hao raised his hand and pretended to rub Jiang Wan's head. Jiang Wan's body stiffened and she wanted to avoid him. But when she thought about what Li Ziheng had done, she changed her mind. My uncle has some connections in Tianhai City, but if I want him to help introduce business and attract cooperation, there must be a suitable reason, right? Chung Hao rubbed Jiang Wan's head with a doting look on his face. At first, I came up with an idea, which was to tell my uncle that you were my girlfriend. Having said that, Chung Hao stared straight into Jiang Wan's eyes. Jiang Wan was about to refuse when she heard this. But Chung Hao suddenly laughed at himself, and then continued. But then I thought about it and realized that this is not appropriate. After all, you and Li Ziheng haven't divorced yet. What I am doing is a bit like poaching someone and becoming a mistress. If my uncle knew that I was the one who did it, he would definitely beat me to death, right? Chung Hao acted scared, which made Jiang Wan couldn't help laughing. Although I don't mind getting beaten up for you, I thought about it afterwards. You haven't divorced Li Ziheng yet. If my uncle wants to see you and finds out about this, he will definitely say something very unpleasant to you. Chung Hao sighed deeply, with a hint of bitterness in his smile. He stared at Jiang Wan with a complicated look. I don't mind being beaten, but I don't want you to get hurt. Thank you. Feeling Chung Hao's passionate love, Jiang Wan's cheeks flushed, her eyes lowered, not daring to look him in the face. You're welcome. I promised you that I would accompany you. Chung Hao, always keep my word. Chung Hao's tone was firm. Jiang Wan just felt warm in her heart. Afterwards, Jiang Wan drove Chung Hao to a high-end Western restaurant to welcome him. The two sat at the dining table talking and laughing, and Chung Hao also talked about his plans. His plan was simple. He asked Jiang Wan to transfer a part of Zhang's shares to Chung Hao's uncle at the market price, so that his uncle would become a shareholder of Jiang. No, my dad won't agree to that. Jiang Wan's face changed slightly, and she refused decisively. The biggest advantage that enabled the Jiang family to develop so well was that the Jiang family was headed by his father alone. There is no need to hold meetings with shareholders to discuss decisions. According to her father Jiang Haisheng, there only needs to be one voice in the company, and that is his voice as the chairman. Wanner, don't get excited yet. Just listen to me. Chung Hao seemed to have expected Jiang Wan to refuse. He smiled confidently and said, even if my uncle becomes a shareholder, Zhang's will still only have one voice. Don't forget, my uncle has his own business, and it's impossible for him to come to Yunqing. Although some of the company's shares will be transferred to his name, I will be responsible for everything in Yunqing. I will not ask about or object to any decision my uncle makes. But even though Chung Hao said this, Jiang Wan still felt uncomfortable. Besides, based on her understanding of her father, he would definitely not agree. Wanner, don't you still believe me? Chung Hao was a little anxious. Jiang Wan remained silent. Chung Hao gritted his teeth, sighed in disappointment, and then said, I have already discussed with my uncle that as long as Jiang is willing to transfer the shares, he can help to make connections. It just so happens that he has many friends in the medical field. For him, it's just a matter of making a phone call. Secondly, this is also a great opportunity for Zhang's to enter Tianhai City. The market in Tianhai City is no worse than that in Yunqing. You should be very clear about this. If everything goes well, Zhang's may be able to set up a branch in Tianhai City. Jiang Wan was somewhat excited about Chung Hao's plans for the Jiang family's future. After thinking for a moment, Jiang Wan nodded gently and said, I can't answer you now. I have to go back and discuss it with my father first. He has to make the decision on the details. Well, I know. I just want to help you, but whether I can help you or not is not up to me to decide. Chung Hao smiled indifferently. Chung Hao, thank you. Jiang Wan was touched. When Zhang's family was in the most difficult time, Li Ziheng was hanging out with Song Yi, and only Chung Hao was helping her sincerely. Chapter 20. You don't look like it. You are it. Noon. Li Ziheng went to the cafeteria to eat with his colleagues from the business department. After 2 days of contact, he has become familiar with his colleagues in the business department. Li Ziheng, You are really good. I have met the unruly young lady of the Song family before. She has a bad temper. I didn't expect that you could handle her after just one encounter. Li Ziheng is quite handsome. Could it be that the eldest daughter of the Song family was attracted by his looks? Or was Li Ziheng seducing him? Fuck, it's possible. Li Ziheng, you haven't captured the eldest daughter of the Song family, have you? I also want to find a young lady as my girlfriend. I also want to be kept by someone. Li Ziheng, please teach me. Don't force me to kneel down and beg you. Look at you. You are such a loser. If you have the guts, kneel down. If you don't kneel down, I will look down on you. Colleagues in the same group joked with each other in various ways, but none of them meant any harm. In response, Li Ziheng just smiled and explained that he was just lucky. He also said that in order to complete this task, he was forced to drink a lot of alcohol last night and was completely drunk. Several colleagues in the same group were still chattering away, and the atmosphere was very harmonious and lively. Oh my God, why is Mr. in the cafeteria? Just at this point, a talkative male colleague sitting opposite Li Ziheng suddenly widened his eyes and stared in the direction behind Li Ziheng. Seeing this, the other colleagues also looked behind Li Ziheng. I saw Anya walking towards this side with a tray of food. Upon seeing this, all the colleagues suddenly became quiet. But everyone's eyes were on Anya, who was walking slowly towards them. Anya was wearing a business suit, a slim-fitting blazer on top, a white shirt underneath, a black hip skirt on the bottom, and high heels on her feet. She is tall, and when she walks, her long white legs sway back and forth, which is particularly eye-catching. Many male colleagues couldn't help swallowing when they saw this scene. Anya walked to the table where Li Ziheng was with a plate in hand. After a quick glance, she smiled and asked, "Is there a vacant seat?" The dining table is rectangular and can seat just 10 people, which is exactly the number of people in Li Ziheng's group. There was obviously no room, but Anya still asked deliberately. My colleagues are not fools. They have all been working like slaves for me. They understood what the boss meant almost immediately. "Bossin, I just finished eating. Please sit down." The talkative male colleague sitting opposite Li Ziheng immediately stood up and gave up his seat. He said he had just finished eating, but in fact he had been talking the whole time and had not even finished 1/3 of the food on the plate. "Thanks." Anya nodded and smiled, then sat down gracefully. After thinking for a while, she said to the male colleague who was about to leave, "Starting from this month, your base salary will increase by 1,000. Thank you, Mr. And thank you, Mr. The male colleague was overjoyed when he heard this and kept thanking me. But I just gave up a position and the basic salary increased by 1,000. So, 1,000 a month, that's 12,000 a year. It's a huge profit. When the other colleagues saw this, their eyes suddenly turned red with envy. These evil capitalists only do things to humiliate people for money. It's so hateful. But the most hateful thing is, why can't the person who is humiliated by money be yourself? After Anya sat down, her colleagues, who had been chattering, quieted down. Although the beautiful president is pleasing to the eyes, her aura is also very strong. They feel very pressured to eat at the same table with the president. Therefore, within a few minutes, the colleagues at the same table quickly finished the food on their plates and got up and left. Soon, Li Ziheng and Anya were the only two people left at the table that seated 10. Without being disturbed by outsiders, Anya relaxed a lot and took the initiative to chat with Li Ziheng. "How is it? Do you like the food in the cafeteria?" "Good." Li Ziheng lowered his head to eat and responded simply. Anya frowned and said unhappily, "Why should I be so cold? Didn't I just see you naked?" "Shut up." Li Ziheng's old face turned red and he glanced around. Although there were only him and Anya at their table, the cafeteria was big enough to accommodate more than just the 10 people in their group. As expected, after this quick glance, Li Ziheng helplessly discovered that almost 90% of the employees in the cafeteria were secretly looking at him and Anya. This feeling made Li Ziheng feel a little uncomfortable. Anya had a sly smile on her lips and stared at Li Ziheng with burning eyes. "You can ask me to shut up, but if you want to eat with me from now on, either I will accompany you to the cafeteria, or you will accompany me to the president's office to eat together. Are you threatening me?" Li Ziheng was somewhat displeased, frowned slightly, raised his eyes, and glared at Anya. "In your eyes, am I this kind of bad woman who threatens people?" Anya's expression darkened, and a look of hurt appeared on her delicate and beautiful face. She lowered her head, poking the braised pork on the plate with her chopsticks, and muttered to herself, "In fact, eating alone is very lonely. I'm not like you. You have a bunch of colleagues to accompany you. I can only eat alone and go home alone. I also want to get along well with my colleagues, but I'm the president. If I get too close to my subordinates, I'll lose my prestige. Having said this, Anya suddenly bit her lower lip, looking very aggrieved and hurt. Forget it. Anyway, I'm just a high-level worker. It's normal that no one loves me. I disturbed you today. I'm sorry. I won't bother you again in the future. Her eyes were red, and she was about to get up and leave. Li Ziheng finally softened his heart, and he whispered, "Sit down and eat. I'll accompany you from now on." Real? As soon as the words fell, Anya, who had red eyes and looked aggrieved a second ago, suddenly brightened up the next second. For some reason, Li Ziheng had a feeling that he seemed to have been deceived by Anya. It seems that the grievance, helplessness, and hurt that this woman showed before were all fake. Master, you are indeed a considerate man. Anya's face was filled with smiles. While eating, she asked, "Master, what do you want to eat tomorrow? I'll ask my secretary to order it." Casual. Li Ziheng responded casually. Anya complained dissatisfiedly. "Master, don't be so cold. I just saw you and other colleagues were talking and laughing. Why are you so cold here? If someone doesn't know, they would think I cheated you out of money." Li Ziheng rolled his eyes at her and said unhappily, "Although you didn't cheat me of my money, you cheated my sympathy. How could that be? Do I look like the kind of woman who would deceive people into sympathizing with me? Master, you have such poor taste." Anya argued. Li Ziheng said seriously, "You don't look like it. You are it." Chuckle, chuckle. Anya suddenly smiled. Forget it. If you say yes, then it's fine. Anyway, you've already agreed. A man should stick to his word. Don't go back on your word. Bye." Just at this moment, Li Ziheng's cell phone rang. It's a text message. He took out his cell phone and took a look. The text message was sent by Song Yi, and the content gave Li Ziheng a sudden headache. "Baby, I'm already yours. Get me off your blacklist now. Otherwise, in 10 months, I'll bring my child to you for a paternity test. _X0007_. Chapter 21 Miss Song's Constant Pestering. After reading the text message, Li Ziheng was in a bad mood for the whole afternoon. Jiang Wan's divorce matter hasn't been settled yet, and now Song Yi pops up. Compared to Jiang Wan, Song Yi is more difficult to deal with. What my colleague said before was right. Miss Song Yi is very difficult to deal with. She has a bad temper and tends to be a bit eccentric and not follow the rules when doing things. Li Ziheng thought about ignoring it directly, but he was worried that Song Yi would come to him directly. Just as he was thinking this, he received a call from Song Yi. Song Yi's phone number had been blocked by Li Ziheng before, so this time Song Yi called from an unfamiliar number. Li Ziheng didn't know, so he answered the call. "Li Ziheng, you slept with me last night. Are you going to deny it? I'm warning you, if you don't accompany me tonight, I'll go to your company and make trouble." Li Ziheng's face changed. He quickly covered the receiver of the phone, stood up, and walked quickly to the tea room. After making sure that there was no one around, Li Ziheng picked up the phone and replied, "Song Yi, are you crazy? Nothing happened between us last night. I've stripped you naked, and you say nothing happened? Who will believe me? Quickly remove my Feishi number from your blacklist, and I'll show you something. Can you please stop bothering me? I don't have any feelings for you. We are not suitable for each other." "Not suitable? Okay, wait. I'll contact Yanhai right away and tell them that the details of the cooperation haven't been discussed yet, and specifically ask you to come and talk to me in person." Madman. Li Ziheng was so angry that he hung up the phone. But thinking about Song Yi's character, since she dares to say it, she will really dare to do it. After much thought, he decided to remove Song Yi from Feishan's blacklist. It was released from the list. Bite. As soon as he released Song Yi from the blacklist, the latter sent him a photo and a video. In the photo, Li Ziheng is shirtless, with his head tilted, kissing Song Yi, while one of his arms is around Song Yi's neck. And the video was even more shocking, as it turned out to be the process of him being forcibly kissed by Song Yi last night. After watching the video, Li Ziheng felt terrible. He quickly sent a message to Song Yi. "What do you want? Be good, stay with me tonight. If you have anything to say, we can talk in person. As long as I stay with you tonight, will you delete the photos and videos? And never bother me again? I told you, let's talk face to face. Okay, I have to get busy. I'll drive to pick you up in the evening. Just wait for me downstairs at Yunhai Building." Putting the phone into his pocket, Li Ziheng thought about it and decided to meet Song Yi in the evening. Some things must be explained face to face. Otherwise, if Song Yi keeps pestering him, It will definitely affect his work. After get off work, Lee Ziheng sent a message to Anya, saying that he had something to do in the evening and asked her not to wait for him. After sending the message, Lee Ziheng hurriedly left the company. As soon as I walked out of the company building, I saw a red BMW parked not far away. Next to the BMW was Song Yi, who was wearing a cool white halter dress. Song Yi is good-looking, standing next to a red BMW. She attracted the attention of many passersby. Seeing Lee Ziheng coming out, Song Yi immediately waved to him, her face with delicate makeup and a bright smile. Compared to Song Yi, who was smiling, Lee Ziheng's face looked a little dark. He walked over quickly and sat in the passenger seat without saying anything. So impatient, Song Yi also got into the car. While fastening her seatbelt, she smiled and teased Lee Ziheng. Lee Ziheng urged, "Drive quickly. I don't want to be misunderstood by my colleagues in the company." What misunderstanding? Misunderstanding that we are dating? This is the truth. What is there to misunderstand? Song Yi started the car nonchalantly, but did not drive away for a long time. Lee Ziheng became anxious. "What are you waiting for? Aren't we going to have dinner together? Let's go." The more anxious you are, the more I won't leave. The more you don't want your colleagues to know about our relationship, the more I'll let them know. Song Yi crossed her arms across her chest, looking nonchalant. Lee Ziheng frowned and was very angry. He tried to open the door and get out of the car, but Song Yi got there before him and locked the door directly. "Song Yi." Lee Ziheng frowned and glared at Song Yi. Song Yi smiled brightly. "Baby, you don't have to grit your teeth when you call my name. Also, I prefer to hear you call me..." Lee Ziheng angrily said, "Are you sick? I've already said that we have nothing to do with each other. You and I are not suitable for each other. Don't you understand what I'm saying? Yes, I am sick, and I am seriously ill, and you are my medicine. How about you please be kind and save me?" Facing the furious Lee Ziheng, Song Yi was not afraid at all. She smiled playfully and spoke cheesy love words to Lee Ziheng. Lee Ziheng was really at his wit's end. Seeing that many colleagues were coming over here, Lee Ziheng had no choice but to give in and lower his posture. "Please, please, let's go. You can let me go, but you have to promise me that you will accompany me to the class reunion the day after tomorrow." "You're dreaming." "Oh, you don't agree?" Song Yi's eyes flickered, and she suddenly pressed the car horn. Suddenly, a car horn sounded. The eyes of passersby and colleagues from Yunhai Company were all looking over here. Lee Ziheng was startled and quickly lowered his head and covered his face with his hands. "You're so cruel. I promise you. Drive quickly. It would have been better if you did this earlier. Why did you force me to do this?" Song Yi smiled. As soon as she stepped on the accelerator, the red BMW drove away for a long distance in an instant. Lee Ziheng put his hand down, raised his head, with anger burning in his eyes, and glared at Song Yi fiercely. But Song Yi ignored him and kept humming a tune, seeming to be in a good mood. "Shameless!" Lee Ziheng cursed angrily. Song Yi turned around, raised her eyebrows at Lee Ziheng, and said with a sly smile, "Go ahead and scold me. As long as you are happy, you can do whatever you want." Lee Ziheng was speechless. Faced with Song Yi's shameless behavior, he had no way to deal with it. Yunhai Group office building. Anya, dressed in a business suit, stood in front of the one-way floor-to-ceiling window, overlooking the red BMW, driving towards the intersection below, with a cold look in her beautiful eyes. The female secretary noticed that President Inde was in a bad mood and stood behind him, not daring to breathe. "Is the cooperation of the Song family important to the company?" "Bossin, the Song family garment factory is very efficient and has excellent quality. Both its reputation and influence are top-notch in Yunqing. In addition, the overseas company has signed a 3-year cooperation agreement with our company and has specified that the clothing should be produced by the Song family garment factory. If we cancel the cooperation with the Song family without thinking, it may cause dissatisfaction among overseas merchants, which will not be worth the loss." Hearing this, Anya fell silent. She bit her lower lip and said calmly, "Okay, I get it. Bossin, do you have any other instructions? Tomorrow, pay attention to which company the sales manager's foot leads. If the company with the left foot leads, 1,000 will be deducted from the bonus. What about the right foot? 2,000 buckle with right foot. Okay, Mr. N." The female secretary nodded and secretly wiped the cold sweat from her forehead. _X0007 _. Chapter 22, she went on a business trip just to accompany her ex-boyfriend. Song Yi parked her car in a public parking space near Yunqing University. After getting off the car, she wanted to come over and hug Li Ziheng's arm, but Li Ziheng avoided her. Song Yi was not angry about this. She put her hands behind her back and walked forward with a smile. Soon, the two came to a roadside barbecue stall. "Madam, give me 10 skewers of pork, 10 skewers of chicken, a serving of leeks, a serving of grilled oysters, and a case of beer." As soon as the two sat down, Song Yi started ordering food. The proprietress stood aside, writing and drawing on the menu with a pen. "Xiaoyi, you haven't been here for a long time. Is this your boyfriend?" As the proprietress spoke, she glanced at Li Ziheng with curiosity. It is not difficult to hear from her words that Song Yi often visits this barbecue restaurant. Song Yi smiled and nodded in response. "Yeah, we just talked about it. I brought him here specially for you to recognize his face." The proprietress commented with a smile. "Not bad, not bad. This young man is quite handsome and clean-looking. You can tell at first glance that he is a good man." "I am not." Li Ziheng frowned and wanted to explain. But as soon as he opened his mouth, the diners at the next table started shouting. Helplessly, the proprietress had to hurry over. Song Yi glared at Li Ziheng in dissatisfaction. "What are you not? Are you a good man? Or are you not my boyfriend?" "Li Ziheng, don't forget that your mission today is to accompany me. Since you are accompanying me, you have to be more serious and cooperate a little. You have to say yes even if you are not sure. Does it make sense?" Li Ziheng sighed lightly and was too lazy to pay attention to her. Song Yi was in a good mood. She propped her chin with both hands, stared at Li Ziheng intently, and asked, "Do you remember this place?" Li Ziheng was puzzled. He glanced left and right, and suddenly, a memory that he had deliberately forgotten came to his mind. "Isn't this the barbecue restaurant where Song Yi forcefully kissed me 3 years ago?" He vaguely remembered that it was Song Yi who asked Jiang Wan to go out for supper, so Jiang Wan brought him along. But Jiang Wan received a phone call and left in a hurry. She booked a ticket that night and went on a business trip for a week. That is, after Jiang Wan left, Song Yi took advantage of her drunkenness and forcefully kissed him. Do you know whose call Jiang Wan answered at that time? Song Yi tore open the packaging of disposable tableware with a playful smile on her lips. Li Ziheng frowned slightly. "Is this important?" Song Yi handed the unpacked tableware to Li Ziheng and said jokingly, "Of course it's important, because the call was from Chung Hao." Li Ziheng remained silent, but my heart felt like it was being pricked by a needle. He thought that he no longer loved Jiang Wan and had completely let her go. But after hearing the truth, he still felt a little uncomfortable. Song Yi continued. "The reason why Jiang Wan was in a hurry to leave that day was because Chung Hao came back temporarily from abroad." Seeing that Li Ziheng didn't speak, Song Yi smiled playfully. "Do you know what he did after he came back?" Li Ziheng really wanted to say that all this was in the past, and he no longer cared. But he couldn't help but ask, "What did you do?" Chung Hao's grandmother was dying, so he rushed back from abroad to see her for the last time. The reason he called Jiang Wan was to let Jiang Wan pretend to be his girlfriend and fulfill his grandmother's last wish. Li Ziheng was silent again. He still remembered that Jiang Wan's explanation to him at the time was that something happened in the company and she needed to go on a business trip for a few days. But in fact, the truth was that Jiang Wan deceived him and went to another place to accompany Chung Hao to meet her grandmother. Thinking of this, Li Ziheng laughed at himself. He thought that the 5 years after marriage would be wonderful, but in fact, there were still deception and betrayal during these 5 years. It's just that Jiang Wan hid it too well, and he trusted Jiang Wan too much, so he never doubted it. Song Yi said something shocking. Chung Hao's grandmother said she wanted to have a grandson, so Jiang Wan stayed with Chung Hao in his hometown for 7 days. The two stayed together every day and even slept in the same room at night. Tell me, did Jiang Wan do anything to let you down 3 years ago? Li Ziheng pretended to be calm, but he was furious in his heart. How do you know all this? Because I have evidence. Song Yi blinked. At this time, the proprietress had already brought out the grilled food. Then, the proprietress brought another box of beer. Song Yi held the bottle opener and opened 2 bottles of beer in a few seconds, and handed one of them to Li Ziheng. Li Ziheng didn't answer. I can show you the evidence and tell you everything I know, but the prerequisite is that you have to get drunk with me tonight. Song Yi didn't care. She put the beer in front of Li Ziheng and then clicked a few times quickly on her phone. Bite. Li Ziheng's cell phone rang. When I clicked on it, it was a photo sent by Song Yi. This is a photo of a man and a woman holding hands. With just one glance, Li Ziheng recognized that the owner of the hand was his wife Jiangwan. The reason why it can be recognized at a glance is mainly because of the diamond ring on the ring finger of that hand. That was something he had specially customized when he proposed to Jiangwan. There is only one of its kind in the world, and no other like it exists. Do you believe it now? Song Yi poured herself a glass of beer, but did not rush to drink it. Instead, she held it in her hand and shook it gently. Jiangwan and I are a thing of the past. I don't want to know about her affairs, and there is no need to know. Li Ziheng responded calmly, but he still picked up the bottle, poured himself a glass, and then drank it all in one gulp. I'm telling you this not to sow discord, but just to speak up for you. You obviously like her so much, you love her so much, but she treats you like a fool and hides everything from you. Song Yi looked at Li Ziheng with sympathy, and then drank the beer in her glass as well. But she quickly poured herself another glass and continued, I didn't spy on Jiangwan. The photo I just gave you was saved from her circle of friends. Li Ziheng's eyes trembled slightly. The hands under the table clenched in a fist involuntarily. The reason you can't see it is because she blocked you. Is it heartbreaking? Don't worry. There are more heartbreaking things. Song Yi raised a meaningful smile at the corner of her lips. She poured a glass of wine for Li Ziheng and continued, You are the only one that Jiangwan has blocked. Do you understand what this means? Everyone knows. But you are the only one who is kept in the dark. Can't believe it? Come on, take a look for yourself. Scroll up. I can see all her friend circles, from the most recent to 5 years ago. Song Yi continued to fan the flames. During this period, her parents also liked and commented on her posts. Unterstrich x 001 0 unterstrich 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 unterstrich x 0. Chapter 23. Who is the young master? Li Ziheng took the phone with a trembling hand and scrolled up from the most recent updates. I'm telling you this, I don't expect you to thank me, but you should at least drink with me, right? Come, let's drink and watch. Song Yi kept pouring wine for Li Ziheng and clinking glasses with Li Ziheng. The two of them drank one cup after another but did not touch the food on the table at all, and just drank it dry the whole time. An hour later, Li Ziheng was already overwhelmed. But he wasn't drunk. The two of them had finished a box of beer. There were empty wine bottles all over the ground, but Li Ziheng had no intention of stopping. Song Yi asked the proprietress to bring another box of beer, and the two continued drinking. Perhaps it was because of the alcohol. Li Ziheng cried silently while drinking. I'm such an idiot. She's been lying to me since the beginning. Li Ziheng muttered to himself, and then drank the beer in the glass in one gulp. You are indeed very stupid. You have been a substitute for someone for 5 years, and you still don't realize it. Song Yi nodded in agreement, and at the same time, she said sarcastically, What I said was all true, but you thought I was trying to sow discord. I'm sorry. I misunderstood you. I toast you with this cup as an apology. Li Ziheng smiled bitterly and drank another glass of beer. Song Yi said, 1 cup is not enough. I'll tell you the truth. You stabbed me in the back and caused me to be scolded by Jiangwan. At least 3 cups. Otherwise, I will never forgive you. Okay, 3 cups is 3 cups. Li Ziheng also wanted to indulge himself, so he just drank without restraint. After 3 beers, his head became even more dizzy. Li Ziheng, after Jiangwan treated you like this, have you ever thought of taking revenge on her? Song Yi curved her eyebrows and gave a wicked smile. Li Ziheng was stunned for a long time before he came to his senses and murmured, Revenge? How to retaliate? Jiangwan will also go to the class reunion the day after tomorrow, and if nothing unexpected happens, she will bring Cheng Hao with her. Song Yi's eyes sparkled with excitement. She stared at Li Ziheng and asked seriously, Do you want her to experience the feeling of being betrayed? Think. A trace of hatred flashed in Li Ziheng's eyes. From love comes hate. Before knowing the truth, he actually didn't hate Jiangwan. After all, they had been married for 5 years and their feelings were there. Even if they were to separate and divorce, the most he would feel is disappointment and heartbreak. But in fact, Jiangwan has been deceiving him for the past 5 years. This was infidelity to the marriage. The 5 years he once thought were beautiful were now tainted. Song Yi said in a voice full of temptation, The day after tomorrow, you will accompany me to the class reunion as my boyfriend. Don't they like to do it secretly behind their backs? Then let's do it openly. Good. Li Ziheng's eyes lit up, and after a brief thought, he nodded and agreed. Why is he the only one who is miserable in a marriage between two people? Since Jiang-won was unfaithful in her marriage, why should he be sad and upset over a woman who deceived and betrayed him? I, Li Ziheng, have both money and good looks. Why do you, Jiang-won, think that I will be miserable after I leave you? Why do you think you'll be better off without me? In that case, just wait and see. I will trample all your arrogance under my feet. I want you to know that the things you are proud of are just easy to get in my eyes. I will make you regret it and regret it. Li Ziheng gritted his teeth, his eyes flashing with a heart-pounding coldness. In the past, he had a calm and reserved temperament, but now he is sharp and full of aura. Li Ziheng, I suddenly found that you are getting more and more handsome. I think I like you even more. Song Yi, who was sitting opposite, blinked her big, watery eyes and stared at Li Ziheng with burning eyes. But the next second, Li Ziheng fell directly on the dining table with a bang, and even the wine glass was knocked over. Song Yi was stunned for a moment. Then she covered her mouth and laughed. The night is as dark as ink. It's not daybreak yet. Li Ziheng woke up slowly. To be precise, it was because I drank too much beer and woke up because I had to pee. He felt like his bladder was about to explode, and without giving it any time to think, he sat up in bed. After sitting up, he realized that this didn't seem to be his room, but this room seemed familiar. Isn't this Song Yi's room? Li Ziheng shook his head and suddenly remembered. When he turned around, sure enough, Song Yi was lying beside him. Song Yi was covered with a thin blanket, exposing her snow-white shoulders. Li Ziheng didn't know whether Song Yi was naked under the thin blanket. Hiss! Feeling a pain in his bladder, Li Ziheng did not dare to delay and rushed into the bathroom in a hurry. After a refreshing release, Li Ziheng slowly exhaled. With his head still a little dizzy, Li Ziheng walked out of the bathroom, carefully found his clothes, put them on, and left. After leaving Song Yi's residential area, Li Ziheng took out his cell phone and saw that it was turned off again. He couldn't understand why Song Yi liked to turn off other people's phones. Turn on your phone, and the incoming call and text message alerts will keep ringing. Before Li Ziheng could look through it, a red Ferrari suddenly stopped in front of him. Looking up, Li Ziheng's eyes met Anya's, who was sitting in the driver's seat. Anya had her hair casually draped behind her head and was wearing a very sexy black ice silk suspender pajamas. Her skin was white and smooth, and under her slender swan neck was a deep white valley. Just one glance, and it's hard to look away. Li Ziheng was stunned for a moment, but soon came to his senses. He opened the car door and got in. As soon as he got in the car, before he could fasten his seat belt, Anya stepped on the accelerator and sped away. The sudden strong push on his back startled Li Ziheng. His heart was pounding, and he sobered up a lot. Are you crazy? Li Ziheng turned around and glared at Anya in shock. The latter had a cold face and didn't say a word until the car drove back to the downstairs of the villa. Then Anya asked coldly, Master, I told you that the women outside are all bad women. They will only bully you and lust after you. Why don't you believe it? Li Ziheng opened his eyes wide, looking confused. Why did Anya tell me this? You're not a child anymore. How can you not tell the difference between good people and bad people? I hope this is the last time. If it happens again, I won't care about you anymore. After saying that, Anya opened the car door with a cold face and returned to the villa angrily. Li Ziheng touched his nose and said speechlessly, Who is the young master? Chapter 20, For she is more ruthless than I thought. Li Ziheng rubbed his aching head and followed Anya back to the villa. After entering the house, Anya went straight to the kitchen. Li Ziheng didn't think much about it. After changing his shoes, he prepared to go upstairs. As I reached the stairs, I heard Anya's voice coming from the kitchen. Why are you in such a hurry? Drink a glass of honey water first before going upstairs. Anya came out with a cup of steaming honey water. After stuffing the honey water into Li Ziheng's hand, Anya snorted proudly, turned around, and went upstairs without looking back. Li Ziheng felt warm in his heart and opened his mouth to say thank you. But before he could finish his words, he heard Anya's obviously unhappy voice coming from the corridor. No need to thank me. You are the young master after all? This little girl now knows that I am the young master? Li Ziheng smiled helplessly, blew on the boiling hot honey water, and drank it in small sips. After drinking a glass of honey water, my stomach, which had been feeling warm due to drinking on an empty stomach, suddenly felt much more comfortable. After drinking the honey water, Li Ziheng went upstairs to wash up. Lying on the bed, Li Ziheng couldn't help but recall what Song Yi said to him in the barbecue restaurant. Jiang Wan had been deceiving him from the very beginning. She had never liked him from the very beginning. She was with him only because she treated him as a substitute for Chung Hao. Thinking of this, Li Ziheng still couldn't help feeling a pang of pain in his heart. If Li Ziheng was unwilling to take action to retaliate against Jiang Wan before, it was because of the 5 years of relationship they had. Then, when he learned the truth, there would be no excuse to stop him from taking revenge. People who cheat and play with feelings do not deserve sympathy or pity. Even more unforgivable, those who deceive others will always be deceived. There are still 2 hours until dawn and 5 hours until work time. Li Ziheng closed his eyes and fell asleep soon. At 7:30 in the morning, Li Ziheng got up early as usual. After a quick wash, he went downstairs to prepare breakfast. As soon as breakfast was ready, Anya came down from upstairs. Her face was still cold, and there was an apathy around her that kept people at a distance. After going downstairs, she prepared to go out without even looking at Li Ziheng. Li Ziheng touched his nose and took the initiative to speak. "Come over to eat. I have something to say. I won't eat anymore. Just tell me what you want to say." Anya had a stern face, looking like she didn't want to get too close to Li Ziheng. Li Ziheng frowned and said in a cold tone, "Come over if I tell you to. Are you mean to me?" Anya frowned, and her breathing became noticeably heavier. Her chest rose and fell violently, and her round and full breasts moved up and down, looking very attractive. Seeing this, Li Ziheng shook his head and sighed. "Thank you for picking me up last night, and thank you for helping me prepare the honey water." Hearing this, Anya's mood obviously eased a lot, but she still pretended to be indifferent and asked, "What else?" "And what else?" Li Ziheng looked confused. Anya, who had calmed down a lot, suddenly became even angrier. "Is this your attitude to admitting your mistakes? Admit your fault? What fault should I admit?" Li Ziheng had a question mark on his forehead. Anya said angrily, "We have been living together, but you stayed out for 2 consecutive nights, and you still say you are not wrong. Don't talk nonsense. We just live together. What do you mean by living together?" Li Ziheng hurriedly explained the situation. If this got out, not only Anya, but also his reputation would be affected. If Yunhai's colleagues knew about this, I'm afraid he wouldn't be able to start from the grassroots level with peace of mind. "You mean I'm not as good as that woman named Song Yi? In terms of figure, appearance, temperament, and ability? In what way am I inferior to her?" Anya's eyes were a little red. She straightened her chest, and the impact of the imminent scene made Li Ziheng lose consciousness for a moment. Li Ziheng was afraid that he could not resist the temptation, so he quickly retracted his gaze. Anya pursed her lips, looking aggrieved. "You would rather be ambiguous with her than admit that you live with me? Am I so unattractive to you?" Li Ziheng quickly explained. "Don't talk nonsense. There is no ambiguity between her and me." Anya snorted coldly. "No? You kissed passionately in the KTV and slept in the same bed with Song Yi. Your ex-wife caught you red-handed, and you're still trying to make excuses." Li Ziheng's eyes widened. "You followed me?" "I don't." Anya's eyes flickered, and she felt a little guilty. Li Ziheng held his forehead in silence, but still patiently explained. "The passionate kiss you mentioned is pure nonsense. She forced me to kiss her, even when I stayed at her place overnight. It was because I was drunk, and she forced me to go there." Anya's eyes lit up, and she looked at Li Ziheng. "So, nothing happened between you two? You are still clean? Why do you care about these things? They have nothing to do with you." Li Ziheng glared at Anya. "What does it mean to be clean? Why does this sound so weird?" For some reason, the latter suddenly felt better. She happily came to the dining table, sat down, and started to eat. Anya's face was filled with smiles. While eating, she asked, "Master, didn't you just say you had something to tell me? Tell me what it is. If I can do it, I will definitely help you." Li Ziheng took a bite of the fried egg and squinted his eyes and said, "I need detailed information about Zhang's company, as well as information about all of Zhang's customers and partners." Anya's eyes trembled slightly, and then she asked, "Young master, are you going to take action against Zhang? What else?" Li Ziheng smiled and said, "Zhang's family has relied on Yunhai for 5 years. Since Jiang Wan and I are ready to divorce, shouldn't they return what they took from Yunhai?" "Of course I should." Anya nodded, chewing her food in small bites, and responded, "I have already prepared the information about Zhang's company, and I am just waiting for the young master to ask me for it." "You're pretty quick." Li Ziheng praised him generously. Anya smiled proudly. Master, in fact, I have made a plan to suppress the Jiang family in the past few days. Once the plan succeeds, the Jiang family will be removed from Yunqing. Moreover, we will directly replace Jiang's family, or even swallow up Jiang's family. At the dinner table, Anya outlined her plan. The business world is like a battlefield. Anya is not short of competitive tactics and has sufficient experience. Being able to take root in Yunqing and secure the position of the president of Yunhai, how could Anya be a helpless vase? Just follow your plan, but I want to be involved. Li Ziheng nodded with a smile and said calmly, Jiang family rose to prominence because of me. If that's the case, then I should personally push Jiang family into the abyss. Okay, Master. Anya smiled sweetly and then said, Master, you have a strong desire for revenge. Really? Then you'd better not offend me. Otherwise, I can't guarantee that I won't retaliate against you too. Li Ziheng stood up and cleared the dishes. It's still unclear who will take revenge on whom. Anya curled her lips in disdain, and then the two of them smiled at each other. 10 minutes later, the two went out to work. Anya was still driving, and Li Ziheng sat in the passenger seat looking at information about the Jiang family. When Li Ziheng saw the information about Cheng Hao's uncle's real estate company, he was stunned. He turned his head and looked at Anya, secretly surprised. It seems that Anya's methods are more cruel than he imagined. Chapter 25 Classmates Reunion. She brought by Yue Guang, and I brought her best friend, Jiang Shi, chairman's office. As the company's current situation is not very good, Jiang Haisheng, who had originally retreated behind the scenes, has recently been coming to the company from 9 to 5 every day. As soon as he arrived at the company, his daughter Jiang Wan came to find him. Jiang Wan recounted what Cheng Hao said yesterday. Just as Jiang Wan expected, Jiang Haisheng refused without even thinking. What's wrong with you? Do you know what you're doing? You're inviting a wolf into your house. Jiang Haisheng was furious. Jiang's has finally come to this day, and you still think the current troubles are not enough? Do you have to destroy Jiang's company before you are satisfied? Only then will you give up. Dad, you know the current situation of Jiang's company. If we want to break through and continue to grow and develop, we must rely on external forces. Besides, Cheng Hao himself said that he can fully represent his uncle. Even if he transfers part of the shares, Jiang's is still the one who has the final say in our Jiang family. Jiang Wan tried to persuade her father Jiang Haisheng. Although our company will lose some shares, we will also gain a powerful comrade in arms. Jiang's company may even have the hope of entering Tianhai City. Risks and opportunities coexist. This is what you taught me, father. Jiang Haisheng remained silent. He was moved, but he didn't dare to gamble. As the person in charge of the company, every decision he makes will affect the company's subsequent development and future. A wrong decision could even lead to the destruction of the entire Jiang family. After a long silence, Jiang Haisheng closed his eyes, waved his hand, and said, I will consider this matter. If there is nothing else, you can leave first. Jiang Wan knew that it would take time for her father to make this decision, so she did not urge him, but quietly walked out of the office. On the way back to her office, she ran into Cheng Hao, who happened to be going to the tea room. Wanner, has her uncle agreed? He hasn't agreed yet, but I believe he will agree. Jiang Wan was very sure. She knew her father, although he didn't want outsiders in the company. But he doesn't want the company to go downhill next. If the Jiang family wants to break out of the impasse and continue to develop, they can only seek help from external forces, as she said. Cheng Hao nodded and said, Wanner, I'll go and comfort my uncle later. You have to work harder on your side, or I'm afraid my uncle will lose his patience. Cheng Hao, thank you. Jiang Wan smiled. When she encountered difficulties and felt most helpless, only Cheng Hao was willing to stay by her side and help her, which touched her deeply. Suddenly, she thought of the class reunion invitation initiated by her university class monitor 2 days ago. Originally, she wanted to ask Li Ziheng to accompany her, but now she has changed her mind. Cheng Hao, there's a class reunion tomorrow. Would you like to accompany me? Of course I am willing. As long as you ask me, I will risk my life to accompany you, not to mention attending a class reunion, even if it means going through fire and water. Bah, if you want to go through fire and water, go by yourself. I won't go. Jiang Wan was in a good mood. She rolled her eyes at Cheng Hao and then smiled. Cheng Hao also laughed. He suddenly changed the subject and asked, Wanner, I'll be frank with you about our relationship. Li Ziheng is not worthy of you. Since he wants a divorce, why don't you just agree? Are you still unable to let go of Li Ziheng? As far as I know, he has been staying at home for the past 5 years and has not cared about you. There is really no need for you to waste your life on such a loser. Hearing this, the smile on Jiang Wan's face gradually disappeared. She had never thought of divorcing Li Ziheng, even though Li Ziheng had not been of much help to her career in the past 5 years. But it has been 5 years after all. Even if they were impulsive when they got together, they have lived together as a couple for 5 years, so there is still some affection between them. If she really had to divorce Li Ziheng, she would still feel reluctant. The most important thing is that her current situation is not very good, and she would be unwilling to divorce Li Ziheng at this time. Even if she wants a divorce, she has to wait until she resolves the company's problems and makes it grow stronger. Only then will she agree to a divorce. She wanted Li Ziheng to see how outstanding she was, and wanted Li Ziheng to beg her not to divorce. She wants to make Li Ziheng regret filing for divorce and regret choosing to leave her. In a blink of an eye, 2 days passed. That afternoon, Li Ziheng went to the president's office. It was almost time to get off work, but Anya was still busy with the work at hand. Seeing Li Ziheng coming in, Anya stopped the work in her hands, looked up, and stared at Li Ziheng with a puzzled look. Li Ziheng smiled and said, "I have to attend a party tonight, so I might be back late." "How late?" Anya's pretty brows frowned slightly. Li Ziheng said, "I can't say for sure. You must be back before 12 o'clock, otherwise I will lock the door and make you sleep on the street." Anya finished speaking and continued to work on the documents on her desk. Li Ziheng touched his nose, feeling speechless. Sleeping on the street? How is that possible? If you don't open the door, don't I know how to go to the hotel and get a room? But he didn't say this out loud because he was afraid Anya would get angry. When walking out of the president's office, Li Ziheng couldn't help but feel a little confused. He was obviously the young master, and Anya was just the executive president of a company invested by his mother in Yunqing. If you think about it, Anya was still my subordinate. So why does the relationship seem different now? How come I, the young master, have become more like a subordinate? Do I need to report to her before going out to a party? After get off work, Li Ziheng left the company first. As soon as I walked out of the company gate, I saw Song Yi, who had been waiting for me downstairs in the company. It was still the same red BMW, but the difference was that Song Yi was obviously dressed up today. She was wearing a black Chanel dress, with delicate makeup on her face, long curly eyelashes, bright eyes, fiery red lips, and long hair dyed silver gray. She looked very beautiful. "Baby, can't you leave work earlier? I've been waiting for you for almost half an hour." Seeing Li Ziheng coming over, Song Yi pouted and complained somewhat unhappily. Li Ziheng rolled his eyes at her and got into the car. "Drive quickly so my colleagues don't see it." Song Yi, who had just got in the car, became even more unhappy after hearing what Li Ziheng said. But she did not lose her temper. Instead, she started the car obediently and drove away quickly from the downstairs of Yunhai Company. The venue for the class reunion is a 5-star hotel. Squad leader Cui Yuan booked a private room. When Li Ziheng and Song Yi arrived, almost all the other classmates who came to the party had already arrived. Among them are Jiang Wan and Cheng Hao. Cheng Hao came with Jiang Wan. During the visit, a classmate asked Jiang Wan why Li Ziheng did not come, but Jiang Wan just said that Li Ziheng had something to do and could not come. After the two of them arrived, they sat aside, talking and laughing by themselves, and had almost no topics to talk about with other students. All the students present knew that Cheng Hao was Jiang Wan's ex-boyfriend, so no one was tactful enough to mention Li Ziheng again. But it just so happened that Li Ziheng, whom they didn't want to mention, entered the box with Song Yi at this moment. At this moment, everyone's expression changed, and almost subconsciously, everyone looked at Jiang, whose face was a little blue. Chapter 26, As Long as I Don't Agree, You Will Still Be My Husband. Jiang Wan's face was as gloomy as water, and her eyes were filled with anger as she stared at Li Ziheng. The atmosphere at the scene was a bit weird. Everyone was silent. "Sorry, we're late." Song Yi hugged Li Ziheng's arm and pulled Li Ziheng to sit down. I don't know if it was intentional, but there were clearly several empty seats, but Song Yi pulled Li Ziheng to sit next to Jiang Wan. Li Ziheng sat in the middle, with Jiang Wan on his left and Song Yi on his right. Obviously, Jiang Wan was Li Ziheng's nominal wife, but Song Yi hugged Li Ziheng's arm and behaved very intimately. Seeing that everyone was silent, Song Yi found a topic casually. "Have you ordered yet? My son Ziheng likes spicy food. Remember to order some Sichuan dishes." "Not yet. Miss Song hasn't arrived yet. Who dares to order first?" Squad leader Cui Yuan took over the conversation with a somewhat embarrassed look. There is no way. He didn't want to stand up, but after all, it was he who initiated this class reunion. Then hurry up and bring the menu over. I want to order. Song Yi's face was filled with a bright smile. The menu was handed over, and Song Yi ordered the dishes quickly. While ordering, she deliberately asked Li Ziheng, "Which do you like, boiled fish slices or boiled pork slices?" "All right." Li Ziheng smiled faintly. "Since both are fine, let's order both." Song Yi asked a classmate to find a waiter and started ordering food immediately. Even after the waiter left, the box remained very quiet. Everyone realized that today's class reunion might not be able to go on. Sure enough, just when Song Yi was diligently pouring water for Li Ziheng again, Jiangwan could no longer sit still. "Song Yi, Li Ziheng is my husband. Isn't it inappropriate for you to be so intimate with my husband in front of me?" Jiangwan's tone was somewhat harsh, and her voice revealed an uncontrollable anger. As soon as these words were spoken, all the classmates looked at Song Yi, wanting to see how Song Yi would respond. "What's wrong with that?" Song Yi looked nonchalant and smiled at Chung Hao, who was sitting on Jiangwan's left. She said meaningfully, "Chung Hao doesn't mind, so why do you mind?" Shifting the topic to Chung Hao at this time is undoubtedly saying that you, as someone's wife, can bring your ex-boyfriend to the class reunion. So why can't she, as her best friend, bring your husband along? Chung Hao's face suddenly turned ugly. "Song Yi, this is a class reunion. We are all classmates. Is there anything wrong with me coming to the party?" "Oh, if you hadn't told me, I would have forgotten about it." Song Yi slapped her forehead lightly and apologized immediately. "I'm sorry, I almost forgot that I have a classmate like you." Everyone present looked at Song Yi, all with speechless expressions on their faces. "Forgot? This is obviously intentional." Song Yi blinked her eyes. "Why are you staring at me like that? Or should I let Ziheng go?" "What are you talking about? Li Ziheng is Jiangwan's husband. We welcome him to come. Why would we let him go?" Cui Yuan wiped the cold sweat from his forehead and tried to smooth things over with a wry smile. At this moment, he already regretted initiating this class reunion. It was clearly a happy gathering to reminisce about the past. How did it inexplicably turn into a battlefield? 10 minutes later, the waiters came with the dishes. Chung Hao picked up Jiangwan's bowl and served her a bowl of chicken soup. "Wanner, you've been too busy at the company lately. Drink some chicken soup to replenish yourself?" "Thanks." Jiangwan nodded slightly. At this time, Song Yi also started her performance. "Ziheng, this spicy crayfish tastes good, try it." As Song Yi spoke, she handed the freshly peeled crayfish to Li Ziheng's mouth. Li Ziheng looked at Song Yi and was obviously stunned for a moment. Song Yi raised her eyebrows at him quickly. Li Ziheng laughed in silence, opened his mouth, and took the shrimp meat that was handed to him. "It's really good." Li Ziheng chewed the shrimp for a few times and then swallowed it. Song Yi's face was filled with smiles. "Really? Then I will learn how to make it later, and I will cook it for you when the time comes." "Good." Li Ziheng nodded with a smile. "Pa!" Jiang Wan slammed the chopsticks in her hand on the table. The huge noise immediately made the atmosphere in the box tense again. Jiang Wan's chest rose and fell violently. Her peach blossom eyes were filled with anger, and she stared at Li Ziheng. "Li Ziheng, have you had enough of this?" "What did I do?" Li Ziheng looked innocent. "You are my husband, but you are showing affection with my bestie here. Do you think this is appropriate?" Jiang Wan laughed in anger. "I know, you just blame me for not inviting you to the class reunion this time, so you deliberately acted with Song Yi. Do you think that if you do this, I will get angry? Will I bow my head to you and apologize to you?" Li Ziheng frowned and said nothing. Song Yi leaned her head closer and said in a voice that only the two of them could hear, "Be tougher and fight back. Do you want Chung Hao to laugh at you?" Seeing that Song Yi was still clinging to Li Ziheng, Jiang Wan immediately said angrily, "Song Yi, you are the eldest daughter of the Song family after all. Please have some sense of shame and stay away from my husband." Song Yi retorted stubbornly, "I am willing. What's it to you?" Jiang Wan yelled angrily, "Shame on you." Song Yi smiled brightly. "Thank you." The students who were originally eating with their heads down stopped eating and started eating melons instead. Li Ziheng put down his chopsticks and turned to look at Jiang Wan with a cold expression. "Jiang Wan, I have filed for divorce. We are no longer husband and wife. It is my freedom to be with whomever I want. It has nothing to do with you." Boom. Upon hearing the news, the students who had been watching the show in silence suddenly widened their eyes with expressions of disbelief. Jiang Wan's face turned pale, and she gritted her teeth and said, "As long as I don't agree, we will still be husband and wife, and you will still be my husband. Your current behavior is equivalent to cheating." I cheated. Li Zieng smila. He looked away from Jiang Wan and towards Cheng Hao, his smile gradually deepening. What about you and him? You guys are together all day, so it doesn't count as cheating? Jiang Wan immediately explained. Cheng Hao is my best male friend. We are just normal friends. Apart from this relationship, we are still colleagues. From ex-boyfriend to male best friend, and then to colleague? Li Ziheng sneered and suddenly took Song Yi's hand and said, Then I'll tell you now. Song Yi is also my best friend. In this case, what else do you have to say? Oh, by the way, she is not only my bestie, but also an important client at work. Is there any problem with me accompanying her to her class reunion? Chapter 27, Sing a Song, Green Hat. Jiang Wan frowned and said coldly, Work? Where do you get a job? No way. Didn't you say Ziheng is your husband? How come you don't even know what your husband does for a living? Song Yi looked like she was just enjoying the fun and continued to add fuel to the fire. Ziheng, you're so miserable. No wonder you wanted me to be your girlfriend. But don't worry, my best friend will never be like your wife. I will take good care of you. Jiang Wan was furious. Song Yi, that's enough. What does it have to do with you if I talk to my husband? I'm talking to my best male friend. How does that bother you? Song Yi rolled her eyes, turned her head and looked at Cheng Hao again, jokingly saying, Cheng Hao, are you still a man? Jiang Wan is so angry. Why don't you comfort her? An embarrassed look appeared on Cheng Hao's face. He hesitated for a moment, then said softly, Want or forget it. Everyone is watching us. If you have anything to say, let's talk about it in private. Song Yi gave Cheng Hao a thumbs up. Look, Cheng Hao is still sensible. He knows that it's not nice to say this kind of thing in person. Jiang Wan, you have to learn more from Cheng Hao. Cheng Hao frowned. He couldn't tell whether Song Yi was praising him or mocking him. Jiang Wan suppressed her anger and said nothing more. It seemed that she also realized that if she continued to make a fuss, she would only make a fool of herself in front of everyone. Okay, we're all classmates. We haven't seen each other for a long time. Let's just have a happy gathering today, okay? Cui Yuan spoke again to smooth things over. This time, Jiang Wan didn't get angry again, and Cheng Hao also restrained himself a lot. He even didn't interact with Jiang Wan at all after the dinner. The classmates gradually relaxed, and everyone was talking about their recent work and marriage. Some were complaining, some were showing off, and the atmosphere gradually became lively. After the dinner, several male classmates who were already a little drunk clamored to go sing together. Class monitor Cui Yuan's heart skipped a beat, and he subconsciously looked at Jiang Wan and Song Yi. He was in favor of singing to relax, but he was a little afraid that these two powder kegs would follow suit. Song Yi's eyes flickered, and she pulled Li Ziheng's arm and shook it gently, as if she was acting like a spoiled child. Ziheng, I want to sing too. Li Ziheng subconsciously wanted to refuse, but Song Yi winked at him and pinched Li Ziheng's arm hard. Li Ziheng felt pain, sighed softly, and nodded. Song Yi said with a happy expression, Ziheng, you are so nice. Later, I will sing. I want to marry you today with you. Since he had already agreed, Li Ziheng let go completely. Jiang Wan was sitting on the left side of Li Ziheng, her hands clenched in a fist under the table, sparks flickering in her eyes, about to explode. Seeing Song Yi starting to act up again, Cui Yuan just felt a headache. One powder keg was already ready to go, and he hoped that another powder keg would not get involved. Jiang Wan, you don't look well. How about? Before Cui Yuan could finish his words, Jiang Wan interrupted him and said since everyone is so interested, it would be a bit of a letdown if I don't go. Let's go together. You. Cui Yuan wanted to withdraw, but as the initiator, it would be unreasonable for him not to stay. He looked at Li Ziheng and then at Cheng Hao. That look seemed to be saying, Cheng Hao, please try to persuade Jiang Wan. Cheng Hao's face looked a little ugly, and he simply ignored the suggestive look from squad leader Cui Yuan. Jiang Wan wanted to sing along, obviously because of Li Ziheng, which made him very unhappy. Half an hour later, a total of 12 men and women came to a high-end KTV near the hotel. Squad leader Cui Yuan booked a luxurious private room, and Song Yi ordered 5 boxes of beer. Cui Yuan frowned and said helplessly, Song Yi, everyone drank a lot during the meal just now. If we sing, we won't drink, right? Squad leader, if you don't drink, we will. Song Yi replied with a smile, then put her arm around Li Ziheng and followed a group of classmates towards the box. Jiang Wan and Cheng Hao followed at the back. Her eyes were fixed on Li Ziheng the whole time, but Li Ziheng simply ignored her. Jiang Wan was very angry, but due to the situation, she couldn't lose her temper. In the box, everyone sang happily for more than 3 hours. During the period, Song Yi had the most fun. She requested 7 songs, 6 of which were love songs sung by a man and a woman. And every time they sang together, she would pull Li Ziheng along. Li Ziheng used to like singing and even studied with a professional teacher for a year. Although his singing skills are not as good as those of professional singers, it is more than enough to outshine everyone in the box. Originally, Chung Hao also wanted to show off his singing skills, but after hearing Li Ziheng singing, he decisively deleted the song he had ordered. They said they were going to sing together, but everyone had already sung, except Chung Hao and Jiang Wan, who didn't sing a single song. It was as if they had come here just to make up the numbers. Instead, Song Yi and Li Ziheng became the focus of the box. Every time they sang, their classmates would whistle and cheer. It was 11 o'clock, and Li Ziheng was ready to leave at exactly the right time. After all, he had promised Anya that he would be back before 12 o'clock. You can go if you want to, but just sing one last song. After you finish, I'll let you go. Song Yi drank a lot of wine. She hugged Li Ziheng's arm tightly. Her cheeks flushed, and she was throwing a tantrum. Li Ziheng had no choice but to nod in agreement. Song Yi came to the song request booth and quickly requested a song called Green Hat and handed the microphone to Li Ziheng. When he saw the title of the song, a look of surprise flashed across Li Ziheng's face. He naturally realized that it was Song Yi who was deliberately trying to discuss Jiang Wan. Not only him, but the other students who were making a fuss also realized it. Therefore, this time, the students in the box did not make a fuss. As the music started, Li Ziheng was silent for a short time and then started singing. You are the green hat on my head. What can you do to me? After singing the song Cuckold, Jiang Wan's face was so gloomy that it seemed like water was about to drip out of it. After the song ended, Li Ziheng found an excuse and left. Song Yi wanted to send Li Ziheng away, but was rejected by Li Ziheng. Just kidding, Song Yi drank white wine while eating and drank 7 or 8 bottles of beer while singing. If she were asked to deliver the meal, she would probably go straight to the grave. After leaving the KTV, Li Ziheng took a deep breath and felt much more sober. Just as he was about to wave down a taxi, Jiang Wan's suppressed angry voice suddenly came from behind him. Li Ziheng, stop! Li Ziheng turned his head and saw Jiang Wan with a dark face, walking towards him quickly. Behind Jiang Wan, there was Chung Yu, who also had a grim look on his face. Chapter 28. Chung Hao is guilty, Jiang Wan is biased. Li Ziheng stopped, turned around, and stared at Jiang Wan, who was walking towards him with extremely cold eyes. What's up? Li Ziheng's attitude was cold. It felt like facing a stranger I had never met before, not like facing my beloved wife. Jiang Wan gritted her teeth, feeling an inexplicable sense of grievance in her heart. But after a brief moment of grievance, what remains is endless anger. Li Ziheng is obviously her husband. Even if she has filed for divorce, as long as the two of them have not obtained a divorce certificate, they are still husband and wife in name. Even if they get divorced, what does it matter? We have been together for 5 years. Why is he so cold to me? Why did you do this to me? Jiang Wan walked closer, and the two were only 2 meters apart. She stared at Li Ziheng with a look of mixed grievance and anger. Li Ziheng laughed dumbly. What did I do to you? We were husband and wife. Although you insisted on getting a divorce, at least we are still husband and wife in name only. You flirted with Song Yi in public and showed your affection. Have you ever thought about my feelings? Jiang Wan gritted her teeth and complained about Li Ziheng's faults. How do you feel? Li Ziheng laughed out loud when he heard this. It was a mocking laugh. Even the way he looked at Jiang Wan changed. When he looked at Jiang Wan before, his eyes were cold and without any emotional fluctuations. But now, the look in his eyes when he looked at Jiang Wan was filled with disgust and sneer. This look made Jiang Wan even angrier. She frowned and shouted, Li Ziheng, that's enough. How have I wronged you that you have to take revenge on me like this? Not far behind him, Chung Hao also came over. He didn't say anything, but just stood quietly behind Jiang Wan, with a playful smile on his lips and staring at Li Ziheng with smugness in his eyes. Revenge? You think this is revenge? Li Ziheng tilted his head and smiled coldly. I just did what you did. How come it seems like I'm taking revenge on you? Jiang Wan was about to retort, but she found that Li Ziheng's eyes suddenly bypassed her and looked at Chung Hao behind her. Jiang Wan turned her head and saw Chung Hao as well. The words he wanted to refute were swallowed back the moment he saw Chung Hao. What are you doing here? There was a hint of impatience in Jiang Wan's tone. Almost at the moment Jiang Wan turned her head, the playful smile on Chung Hao's lips and the smugness in his eyes disappeared instantly. Instead, there is worry and concern. Warner, I was worried about you. So, I came here to check on you. Chung Hao explained softly. As he spoke, he turned to look at Li Ziheng, and the worry and concern in his eyes disappeared. Li Ziheng, Warner is your wife. You have not fulfilled your responsibilities as a husband over the years. Not only have you let Warner work herself to death outside, but now you are deliberately hooking up with Song Yi. When you did this, did you consider Warner's feelings? Are you worthy of Warner's efforts for you over the past 5 years? As a man, I envy you very much. If Warner were my wife, I would never let her suffer these grievances. You don't deserve Warner's true love. Chung Hao righteously reprimanded Li Ziheng. At this moment, he seemed to be standing on the moral high ground again. Listening to Chung Hao's words, Jiang Wan suddenly felt a pang of sadness in her heart, and the corners of her eyes gradually turned red. She seemed to have suffered great injustice, and turned her head to stare at Li Ziheng stubbornly. That look seemed to be saying, "Look, Chung Hao, an outsider thinks that what you did is too much. Aren't you going to apologize to me?" Ha ha ha. Li Ziheng couldn't help but laughed out loud. Chung Hao, you're a grown man. I don't despise you for trying to poach my girlfriend, but your method is really a bit despicable. Are you a woman? Don't you find it disgusting to play such a green tea trick in front of me and talk nonsense? Li Ziheng ridiculed Chung Hao without any hesitation. The latter's face flushed a little, but he still retorted. Although Warner and I were dating before, we broke up peacefully. I came back this time just to help Warner share the pressure. I'm not like you. You only rely on your marriage and your status as a husband to exploit Warner everywhere, and then you live like a blood-sucking worm. If you really like Warner and love Warner, then you should help her in her career instead of getting angry with her and asking for a divorce when she is so busy with work. Li Ziheng, it's not terrible to be incapable. What's terrible is that you have no ability, but you still deliberately hold Warner back. Hearing Chung Hao's outrageous remarks, Li Ziheng felt sick. Chung Hao, from what you said, it seems that you care about Jiang Wan. Since you care about her so much, why don't you draw a clear line with her earlier? Li Ziheng sneered. Jiang Wan is too career-oriented and can't take care of herself. I'm the one who washes clothes and cooks for her every day. When she's sick, I go out in the rain to buy her medicine. When she has a stomachache, I'm the one who takes the trouble to help her take care of it every day. According to you, I am holding Jiang Wan back by taking care of her? Since you care about Jiang Wan so much, let me ask you, what does Jiang Wan like to eat? What food is Jiang Wan allergic to? If Jiang Wan has a stomachache, what medicine should she take? Chung Hao opened his mouth, but was unable to answer. Li Ziheng said with disdain, You know nothing. You only know how to say bad things about me in Jiang Wan's ear. You are just good at talking and destroying our relationship. Is this what you call caring and concern? Chung Hao's face changed, and he refuted sharply. I didn't. No. Li Ziheng narrowed his eyes slightly, his eyes full of disgust and contempt. Don't you understand the simple principle of keeping a distance from the opposite sex? What's more, it's with a married woman. If you are really as great as you say, then why did you send me a message to show off when Jiangwan didn't come back all night? Jiangwan stayed at your place overnight, and I felt relieved? Ha! You thought that if you withdrew the photos, I would have no evidence? Don't you know that I can take screenshots and save them when you send photos and messages? Li Ziheng's words made Chung Hao's face change drastically. You were slandering me. I'm not even your Fishan friend. How can I send you messages and photos? Chung Hao felt guilty. His eyes were evasive, and cold sweat broke out on his forehead. Jiang Wan also looked at Chung Hao suspiciously, and then looked at Li Ziheng with complicated eyes. I'm slandering you. So you want me to produce photos and evidence? Fine, as you wish. Li Ziheng ignored Jiang Wan, took out his cell phone, and was about to produce evidence. Chung Hao's face suddenly turned pale. Just when he was about to collapse, Jiang Wan suddenly yelled, Li Ziheng, that's enough. This shout made Li Ziheng stop what he was doing, and Chung Hao was also stunned for a moment. Don't stir up trouble here. I believe in Chung Hao's character. He would never do such a thing. Jiang Wan gave Chung Hao a soothing look, then turned around and glared at Li Ziheng. Li Ziheng, it's fine if you don't do your job all day, but now you want to use such despicable means to frame Chung Hao. Your behavior makes me feel sick. Li Ziheng's breath was choked. He didn't expect Jiang Wan to say such a thing. He had no evidence, and what he said just now was meant to scare Chung Hao. But in fact, Chung Hao was also frightened. At this moment, Anyone who is not blind can see that Chung Hao is guilty. He didn't believe that Jiang Wan couldn't see it. She clearly discovered it, but still deliberately sided with Chung Hao and even used such vicious words to humiliate herself. Li Ziheng laughed bitterly, staring straight into Jiang Wan's eyes. You said I was not doing my job properly and my methods were despicable, which made you sick. Isn't it? Jiang Wan gritted her teeth and glared at Li Ziheng. Li Ziheng's eyes were red, and he tried hard to hold back the urge to cry and asked, Yes, you are right. If that's the case, why don't you agree to divorce me? Jiang Wan said in a cold tone, Divorce is not important. The most important thing now is to deal with the company's affairs. After the company's affairs are dealt with, I will divorce you without you saying anything. Li Ziheng remained silent. He closed his eyes and tried hard to suppress the negative emotions in his heart. After his emotions stabilized a little, he turned around and hailed a taxi. Jiang Wan, I really regret coming to Yunqing to find you. Chapter 29, She was once the white moonlight in his heart. Li Ziheng is gone. Jiang Wan bit her lower lip lightly, raised her hand slightly, and then dropped it weakly. Chung Hao came over and said, Wanner, don't be sad. It's all my fault. If I hadn't come back and looked for you, maybe Li Ziheng wouldn't have misunderstood you. He blamed himself and said, It's all my fault. I'll explain to Li Ziheng later. If it doesn't work, I'll just leave. Jiang Wan looked very bad, as if all her energy and spirit had been drained away in an instant. She shook her head. It's none of your business. A person with a dirty heart will see everything as dirty. There's nothing wrong between us. There's no need to explain anything to him. A strange look flashed across Chung Hao's eyes. He pretended to be worried and asked, Are you really planning to divorce Li Ziheng? Let it be. If it really comes to that, divorce might be the best outcome. Jiang Wan took a deep breath and smiled at Chung Hao. Chung Hao, thank you for accompanying me today, but I'm tired, so I'll go back first. See you tomorrow. After saying that, Jiang Wan left without looking back. It was already 11:50 when Li Ziheng returned to the riverside villa. The lights in the living room were still on. When Li Ziheng entered the villa, he saw Anya sitting on the sofa, holding a notebook and concentrating on working. Her legs are straight, long, and very white. At first glance, my eyes were subconsciously attracted by her long, white legs. But Li Ziheng was in a very depressed mood at the moment, and he just glanced at the beautiful scenery. Seeing Li Ziheng coming back, Anya stopped the work in her hands. She sat up straight, put her notebook on the coffee table, and said proudly, If you come back 10 minutes later, I will be ready to lock the door. Li Ziheng did not respond, but lowered his head and changed into his home slippers. Noticing that Li Ziheng was in a bad mood, Anya asked tentatively, Are you in a bad mood? Li Ziheng changed his shoes and smiled at Anya. Is there anyone at home? I want to drink some. His smile was full of bitterness. Anya originally wanted to complain about Li Ziheng, but after seeing Li Ziheng's smile that was uglier than crying, she softened her heart. How boring is it to just drink? Go take a shower first, I'll cook 2 dishes, and then I'll drink with you later. Having said that, Anya did not give Li Ziheng a chance to refuse. She stood up and went into the kitchen. When Li Ziheng finished a shower and came downstairs, there were 2 more side dishes on the table, plus a plate of fried peanuts. Anya sat at the dining table and raised her eyebrows at Li Ziheng. Red or white beer? Which one do you want to drink? Li Ziheng replied without hesitation. Let's drink white wine. It's easy to get drunk. Okay, let's drink white wine. Anya nodded, stood up, and took out an unopened bottle of high-end liquor from the wine cabinet behind her. Then he took out 2 goblets. After Li Ziheng sat down, Anya had already poured 2 glasses of white wine and pushed one of them in front of Li Ziheng. Anya raised her glass and smiled at Li Ziheng. Master, I toast you. Good. Li Ziheng nodded and drank the glass of white wine. Seeing this, Anya frowned slightly and wanted to say something, but she held back. She took a sip, then put down the glass and asked tentatively, Master, you seem to be worried about something. Can you tell me? When the strong alcohol entered his stomach, Li Ziheng felt uncomfortable. He raised his eyes to look at Anya, his eyes somewhat broken. Do you want to hear a story? Li Ziheng spoke softly. Without waiting for Anya's response, he told her a story. The protagonist of the story is a little boy. The little boy has been without a father since he was a child, and his mother has been concentrating on building her career and has not spent much time with him. This also caused the little boy to become somewhat introverted and lonely, and he had few friends even on campus. As time went on, the little boy was targeted by the bad kids in the class and became the target of their bullying after class and after school. The little boy felt very aggrieved. After returning home, he thought about telling his mother, but every time he saw his mother coming home tired, he held back. He knew that his mother worked very hard, so he didn't want to cause more trouble for her, so he could only endure it. In this way, the little boy spent almost his entire childhood being bullied. It wasn't until the 6th grade, a week before graduation, that he was once again surrounded by bad classmates. The little boy was prepared to be bullied by his bad classmates, but the bullying that time was more severe than any previous time. One of the bad classmates picked up a rusty iron pipe from somewhere and smashed it mercilessly on the little boy. The little boy was beaten to a bloody mess and was dying, but the bad classmates had no intention of stopping. Just as the little boy fell into endless despair, a little girl in a floral skirt rushed up. The little girl saved the little boy, but was bullied by her bad classmates and her hand was broken. Fortunately, the little girl's mother happened to come over and called the police and sent the bad kids to the police station. After the incident became a big deal, the boy's mother also found out about it. In the end, the boy went to study abroad with his mother. It was not until the little boy graduated from college that he returned to China and found the little girl who saved him as soon as possible. Under the little boy's pursuit, the two soon fell in love and finally got married. But from beginning to end, the girl didn't know that her husband was the little boy she had rescued. After Li Ziheng finished speaking, he drank another glass of wine. With tears in his eyes, he looked at Anya with a smile. Do you think that this little boy and girl will be happy forever in the end? Anya had a complicated expression. She looked at Li Ziheng deeply, shook her head and said, No. Li Ziheng tilted his head and asked in confusion, Why? Anya hesitated and sighed. Because you are that little boy, and you are not happy. Yeah, I'm not happy. Li Ziheng lowered his eyes and couldn't help but let his tears fall. He wiped away his tears and smiled bravely. I thought Jiangwan and I would live happily ever after, but in fact, I was wrong from the beginning. She has her own white moonlight in her heart. The white moonlight that one cannot obtain will become a person's obsession over time. I understand all of this, because she was once my white moonlight, but I didn't expect that by Yue Guang, who once saved me without hesitation, would now become the one who hurt me. Perhaps I shouldn't have come back to find her. In this way, she will always be the kind-hearted white moonlight who saved me from danger. Chapter 30. People with dirty thoughts see everything as dirty. Time passes. When Li Ziheng woke up, he was horrified to find that he was sleeping on the big bed in the master bedroom of the villa. Master bedroom. This is Anya's room. Li Ziheng sat up, rubbed his aching temples with his fingers, and looked around. The room is decorated in a light luxury style. There are not many things in it. Apart from the necessary dressing table for a girl, there are almost no extra items. There is a glass of boiled water on the bedside table. There was a piece of note paper under the glass. Li Ziheng picked up the water cup, took a big sip, then picked up the note paper and took a look at it. Breakfast is in the kitchen. I set it to keep warm. You drank too much last night, so take a day off today. I'll ask for leave for you from the company. On the note paper was a girl's beautiful handwriting. Below the font, there is also a smiley face emoticon. Li Ziheng stared blankly, trying hard to recall what happened last night. But no matter how hard he tried, he couldn't remember what happened last night. It seemed he drank too quickly last night and had a blackout. When Li Ziheng got up from the bed, he simply washed up and went downstairs. Just as the note said, there was breakfast prepared by Anya in the rice cooker in the kitchen. After a simple meal, Li Ziheng sat on the sofa and picked up his mobile phone to search for information about drunken sex. 20 minutes later, Li Ziheng breathed a sigh of relief. Because according to the information on the internet, men cannot do that kind of thing after they are completely drunk. It's okay, Li Ziheng muttered to himself. Anya is very beautiful and capable, and he doesn't want to ruin such a good girl just because he is drunk. Just when Li Ziheng had just breathed a sigh of relief, his mother-in-law, Lu Fangting, suddenly called. Li Ziheng hesitated for a moment, but still pressed the answer button. Ziheng, I heard that you filed for divorce? As soon as the phone was connected, I heard the slightly blaming voice of my mother-in-law, Lu Fangting. Li Ziheng did not quibble, but just said softly. Ziheng, is it necessary to make such a scene? You want a divorce. Mom knows I can't persuade you, but can you not go through the legal process? Mom, I didn't mean to make a scene, but Jiang Wan didn't agree. I had no choice but to take legal action. Well, you withdraw the lawsuit, and I'll go and persuade Warner. Don't worry, Mom won't take her side. But, Ziheng, after living together for several years, you should know my character. Now that I have said this, I will never be partial to Warner. If you want a divorce, I respect your choice. I just don't want you to make it too ugly and let others laugh at you. Okay, I'll withdraw the lawsuit, but we have to get a divorce. Since his mother-in-law had spoken, Li Ziheng had no choice but to agree. After hanging up the phone, Li Ziheng put the phone aside, lay on the sofa, and looked up at the ceiling. Li Ziheng no longer has any obsession with Jiangwan. Now, he just wants to get a divorce as soon as possible and sever ties with Jiangwan. Jiangwan used to be his white moonlight, but now she is no longer. Now whenever he thinks of Jiangwan, he feels sick. Near noon, the cell phone rang again. But this time the person who called was not my mother-in-law Lu Fonting, but Song Yi. Li Ziheng didn't want to answer the call, but Song Yi quickly sent him a Feishan message. Li Ziheng, I helped you last night. Do you want to be an ungrateful person? Just after I finished reading the message, Song Yi called again. This time, Li Ziheng chose to answer the call. Li Ziheng, you stinky scum. How dare you not answer my call? Do you know that I was hospitalized last night just to help you vent your anger? You're in the hospital? Li Ziheng was stunned when he heard this. He remembered that when he left, Song Yi was in good condition. Song Yi said dissatisfiedly, Nonsense, if you don't believe it, you can come and see it now. After that, the phone was hung up. Immediately afterwards, Song Yi sent another message with a photo attached. In the photo, Song Yi had an 4-tube inserted in her hand. Her face was pale, and she pouted, looking very aggrieved. Li Zian, Mungi, if you still have a conscience, bring me some food. Song Yi sent another message. Li Ziheng thought about it and decided that he had already taken a day off for the day, so he changed his clothes and went out. When he arrived at Song Yi's ward, Li Ziheng placed the food he had packed downstairs in the hospital on the mobile dining table. During the whole process, Song Yi didn't say a word, but just stared at Li Ziheng and smiled. Although her face was a little pale, she looked extremely happy. Even while Li Ziheng was busy, she took a photo of him with her mobile phone. Okay, eat now. After setting the food on the table, Li Ziheng handed over the chopsticks. Song Yi looked at her right hand, which was receiving in 4 drip, and sighed helplessly. I want to eat too, but I can't move my hand. As she spoke, she made an aggrieved and helpless expression towards Li Ziheng. Li Ziheng frowned slightly. Don't you still have your left hand? I'm not left-handed. Song Yi pouted and said pitifully. Li Ziheng, why don't you feed me? Li Ziheng stared at Song Yi expressionlessly for a long while. In the end, he relented. He broke open the disposable chopsticks and began to feed Song Yi. Song Yi looked very satisfied, and the smile on her face never faded. It's delicious. Will you still feed me at night? Song Yi chewed the food carefully and stared at Li Ziheng with anticipation. At this time, the nurse came to check on the patient. She glanced at Song Yi's bed information and then said, Ms. Song, you could be discharged after this injection. Can you not leave the hospital? Or give me 2 more shots? Song Yi was unhappy. The nurse rolled her eyes when she heard this and said unhappily, Do you think this is just a game? Besides, too many injections are not a good thing. After saying that, the nurse left. Song Yi pursed her lips and the smile on her face disappeared. Li Ziheng laughed secretly on the side. Song Yi glared at Li Ziheng. What are you laughing at? Feed me quickly. I'm not full yet. An hour later, Song Yi was discharged from the hospital. After being discharged from the hospital, she still pestered Li Ziheng to accompany her, but was rejected by Li Ziheng. Song Yi kept pestering Li Ziheng, who finally had no choice but to agree to accompany Song Yi to drink milk tea. The two sat down in the milk tea shop. Song Yi ordered a glass of mango Yakult, while Li Ziheng only ordered a glass of lemonade with ice. What happened last night? I remember you were fine when I left. How come you were suddenly in the hospital? As soon as the two sat down, Li Ziheng couldn't help but ask what happened last night. When Song Yi heard this, a hint of embarrassment flashed across her face. She stammered, I had a lot of fun last night and accidentally drank a little too much. They sent me to the hospital for an 4 drip in the middle of the night. Li Ziheng suddenly realized. So, your admission to the hospital has nothing to do with me? Song Yi argued. Why is it okay? Don't forget, I drank last night just to help you vent your anger. There doesn't seem to be a direct connection between helping me vent my anger and drinking, right? It was you who wanted to drink, so why are you putting the blame on me? Li Ziheng didn't appreciate this favor. When Song Yi heard this, her cheeks puffed up with anger. Li Ziheng, you scumbag, if you have the guts, say it again? Her voice was quite loud, so after she spoke, many young men and women in the milk tea shop turned their heads to look over. Li Ziheng was suddenly extremely embarrassed. He glared at Song Yi and signaled her to shut up. Song Yi smiled smugly and raised her eyebrows at Li Ziheng provocatively. For some reason, Li Ziheng suddenly discovered that Song Yi's facial features were inexplicably similar to Anya's. After the little episode, Li Ziheng and Song Yi chatted for a while. Just when Li Ziheng was about to get up and leave, Song Yi, who was playing with her mobile phone with her head down, suddenly looked unhappy. She reached out and grabbed the corner of Li Ziheng's clothes. A puzzled look appeared on Li Ziheng's face. Song Yi didn't say anything, but handed her cell phone to Li Ziheng. Li Ziheng took the phone and took a look at it. His expression suddenly became a little ugly, just like Song Yi's. Song Yi's phone screen remained on her Feishan Moments interface. The top post in the circle of friends was posted by Chung Hao 1 minute ago. The text is, "People with dirty thoughts see everything is dirty." The accompanying picture shows Li Ziheng's back as he left sadly last night. Chapter 31. Did you do it with him? After Li Ziheng and Song Yi separated, they took a taxi back to the Riverside Villa. As soon as he entered the villa, Li Ziheng was stunned. In the living room, Anya, who was supposed to be in President Yunhai's office, was sitting on the sofa in the living room with a cold face and her arms folded across her chest. She was wearing a loose silk home suspender skirt, with her legs crossed and elegantly lifted. She looked very unhappy, and there seemed to be an inexplicable chill lingering around her. Seeing Li Ziheng coming back, Anya raised her eyes and looked over. Her eyes were cold, as if she was suppressing her emotions, and there was a hint that a volcano was about to erupt. The two of them looked at each other from a distance. For some reason, Li Ziheng felt a little uneasy in his heart. It was a very strange feeling, as if I had done something wrong to the other person and was caught by him. But obviously, he didn't do anything. The atmosphere was a little awkward for a moment. Li Ziheng changed his shoes silently, but Anya was the first to break the awkward atmosphere. "Where have you been?" And Yafong opened her lips slightly, and there was a subtle questioning tone in her light voice. "I went to the hospital to see a friend." Li Ziheng answered truthfully. When Anya heard this, the coldness on her face melted a little. "Very good, no lie." Then, Anya tilted her head and stared at Li Ziheng. "Just friends?" Li Ziheng frowned and asked, "What else?" Anya's expression eased, but her voice was a little angry. "Tonight, I want to eat the food you cook. Why didn't you say so earlier?" Li Ziheng looked dissatisfied. If he had told me earlier, he could have gone to the nearby supermarket to buy food when he came back. "Are you blaming me?" Anya frowned slightly, pursed her lips, and had a proud expression on her face. She is already very beautiful, and her frowning and arrogant face is even more lethal. Li Ziheng was a little overwhelmed and said immediately, "Okay, I'm afraid of you. I'm going to buy some groceries now." After saying that, he changed his shoes again and prepared to go out. "Wait a minute. Let me change my clothes and I'll go with you." Anya's voice rang out. Then there was a sound of footsteps coming up the stairs. A few minutes later, the two walked out the door together. The supermarket was not far from the villa area, and the two arrived there in about 5 minutes. Li Ziheng pushed the shopping cart and went straight to the fresh food area. Anya followed him happily. "What do you want to eat?" Li Ziheng asked as he walked. Anya thought for a moment and named a few dishes. Li Ziheng was not vague and immediately selected the ingredients. He then went to the supermarket to buy some daily necessities. When it was time to check out at the checkout counter, Anya, who was standing behind Li Ziheng, suddenly took a box of TT from the shelf nearby and threw it into the shopping cart. Li Ziheng didn't notice it until the cashier started scanning the codes of the products. His face flushed immediately. "Sorry, this is not the one." Li Ziheng reached out to take it back, but Anya's voice suddenly came from behind him. "Buy a box, otherwise it will be troublesome if you get pregnant." Li Ziheng widened his eyes and turned to look at Anya, only to see that Anya was recording a video with her mobile phone. "What's wrong with you?" Li Ziheng asked with a red face. Anya smiled and winked at him. "If not, what if you get pregnant? Do you want to marry me with a baby?" "But you don't seem to be divorced yet." Anya's voice was not loud, but the female cashier and the people in line behind her heard it. For a moment, everyone looked at Li Ziheng with a strange look in their eyes. Li Ziheng only felt his face burning hot. Even without looking in the mirror, he could guess that his face must be very red. After finally getting out of the supermarket, Li Ziheng finally couldn't help but lose his temper. Anya, what did you just mean? He was carrying 2 full shopping bags and glaring at Anya angrily. I don't mean anything. It's just for safety. Anya looked unconcerned. Seeing this, Li Ziheng became even angrier. Safety? What's the point of safety? We don't do that kind of thing. So why do we need safety? You won't do it? Then what about you hugging me, kissing me, and touching me last night? If I hadn't resisted desperately, you would have. As Anya spoke, an alluring blush suddenly appeared on her pretty face. She raised her eyes to look at Li Ziheng, but after meeting Li Ziheng's gaze, she shyly looked away. Li Ziheng was dumbfounded. He couldn't remember a single thing about what happened last night. Did I really do something excessive to Anya after I drank too much last night? I don't think so. Li Ziheng wanted to deny this possibility. But when he thought about waking up in Anya's bed today, he felt a little uneasy. Li Ziheng sincerely apologized. I'm sorry, it was an accident last night. I will be more careful next time. Well, I don't blame you. Anya replied with a blushing face, and then added, that thing, keep it well. If you can't control yourself next time, remember to use it. Li Ziheng's face couldn't help but turn red. On the way back, neither of them spoke again. After returning to the villa, Li Ziheng went straight to the kitchen. After dinner, Li Ziheng cleaned up the dishes and hurried upstairs. After this incident, he no longer knew how to face Anya. After taking a shower, Li Ziheng lay on the bed. He secretly decided to move out on the weekend. After all, if a single man and a single woman live together and something unexpected happens, it will be a difficult situation to resolve. Evening. In the master bedroom of the villa, Anya's room. Anya sent out the video she had just recorded in the supermarket and edited a paragraph of text. He will be your brother-in-law from now on. It's best to keep some distance between you and your own brother-in-law. Once the message was sent, a reply came quickly. You did it with him? Anya raised a smile at the corner of her lips, clicked on the emoticon box, and sent a shy emoticon of a rabbit covering its face. There is new message in the Fishin chat box. Anya, is Li Ziheng my brother-in-law or your brother-in-law? It's too early to say this now. Anya didn't reply, but closed the chat box. The next few days were normal. Apart from commuting to and from get off work, when Li Ziheng has some free time, he will look for suitable rental houses on the rental app. In order to facilitate his work, he deliberately chose a community near his company. On the weekend, after breakfast, Li Ziheng called the agent and made an appointment to go and see the house later. But before he left the house, he was stopped by Anya. You are not allowed to move out. Anya seemed angry. Wearing loose home clothes, she stood in front of Li Ziheng, her beautiful eyes full of grievance and stubbornness. If you dare to move out, I will. Anya thought for a long time, but couldn't think of any threatening words, so she gritted her teeth and said, if you dare to move out, I will go on a hunger strike and starve myself to death. Chapter 32, Reject Anya and Move Out of the Villa. Anya's words did not change Li Ziheng's mind. He just stared at Anya with a weird look in his eyes. Anya's face flushed red at a speed visible to the naked eye. After a long time, Li Ziheng sighed softly. He reached out and rubbed Anya's head. His action was like that of a brother doting on his sister. Anya was stunned for a moment, and the next second, she heard Li Ziheng's gentle voice. Stop it. We are not suitable for each other. Li Ziheng's voice was soft, but it was filled with great determination. Anya was silent. She did not try to stop him and let Li Ziheng walk around her and leave the villa. The process of renting a house went smoothly, but the apartment type was somewhat different from what Li Ziheng had expected. Li Ziheng originally wanted to rent a one-bedroom apartment. After all, he lived alone and a one-bedroom apartment was enough. But after seeing the house, I found out it was 2 bedrooms and a living room. The agent was also a little confused and later found out that there was a problem with the information, and he mistakenly took a 2-bedroom, 1 living room unit as a 1-bedroom, 1 living room unit. Li Ziheng did not think too much about it. He decisively signed a lease contract with the agent and started to pack up. The house was 90 square meters, fully furnished, and cleaned by the cleaning lady in advance. Li Ziheng simply packed up and took a taxi back to the Riverside Villa. He packed his clothes and some daily necessities into the suitcase. Anya also took the initiative to send Li Ziheng to the rental house and accompanied Li Ziheng to buy some bedding, sheets, and other items. By the time we finished our work, it was already getting dark. Seeing Anya busy with him for the whole day, Li Ziheng felt a little guilty. so he took the initiative to treat Anya to a meal. The place for dinner was a hot pot restaurant near the rental house. As luck would have it, when the two followed the waiter to the table, they unexpectedly ran into Jiang Wan and Chung Hao, who were also coming to the hot pot restaurant for dinner. Jiang Wan and Chung Hao were talking and laughing in a very good atmosphere, just like a couple in love with only each other in their eyes. When Jiang Wan accidentally caught a glimpse of Li Ziheng sitting at the next table, her eyes trembled slightly. She looked at the woman with Li Ziheng and recognized Anya almost at first sight. Goddessin from Yinhai International Trade actually ate hot pot with Li Ziheng? A look of disbelief appeared on Jiang Wan's face. Chung Hao also noticed the change in Jiang Wan's eyes, so he turned his head and took a look curiously. He didn't know Anya, but he couldn't help but be amazed by her temperament, appearance, and figure. A hint of jealousy flashed in Chung Hao's eyes, but he hid it well. He turned to look at Jiang Wan, who was staring at Anya in a trance, and comforted her softly. Wanner, Li Ziheng and her should be ordinary friends. Don't think too much. Jiang Wan retracted her gaze, but the smile on her face disappeared. What is their relationship? It has nothing to do with me. I have already promised my mother to divorce him. Alas, Li Ziheng has gone too far. If he had bowed his head and apologized to you, you wouldn't have come to this point. Wanner, I think both of you are at fault for your marriage ending up like this. He was wrong for not trusting you and not understanding you. He was wrong for being ambiguous with other women and not caring about your feelings. You were wrong in not being too nice to him, causing him to become spoiled. But all of this is in the past. Just let nature take its course. Maybe one day when he's had enough of hanging out outside and having fun, he'll come back to you. Chung Hao shook his head and sighed, looking as if he felt unfair for Jiang Wanming. Listening to Chung Hao's comfort, Jiang Wan felt an inexplicable surge of frustration and grievance in her heart. But soon, these frustrations and grievances turned into anger. Jiang Wan had a gloomy face and sneered. So what if you come back to find me? I'm not a rag collector. I won't take any garbage. Chung Hao sighed again. Alas, they say that people only know how to cherish something after they lose it. I hope Li Ziheng can understand this truth sooner in the future. Although they were sitting at neighboring tables, neither Li Ziheng nor Anya noticed Jiang Wan and Chung Hao. The hot pot restaurant was a bit noisy, and they couldn't hear the conversation between Jiang Wan and Chung Hao at the next table. In addition, both of them had been busy for the entire afternoon and were extremely hungry. After the hot pot was served and the dishes were cooked, the two began to feast on them. During the meal, Li Ziheng also ordered a bottle of ice-cold beer and a bottle of ice-cold coconut water. Xiaoya, thank you for your hard work today. Li Ziheng poured himself a glass of beer and raised his glass to Anya. The latter smiled, picked up the coconut water as well, and clinked glasses with Li Ziheng. Master, your thanks are too perfunctory. If you really want to thank me, why not let me eat at your place more often in the future? No problem. Li Ziheng agreed without hesitation. But he never dreamed that Anya would often go to his place to eat, and not even pay for the food, just to take advantage of him. Master, there's red oil on your face. Anya raised her hand and used a napkin to gently wipe away the oil stains that accidentally got on Li Ziheng's face. Because the dining table was not small, Anya had to stand up if she wanted to help Li Ziheng wipe the oil stains off his face. This action of standing up quickly attracted Jiang Wan's attention. When she looked over, she saw a slight smile on Li Ziheng's lips, enjoying Anya's intimate behavior of wiping his face. Bang! The glass fell to the ground and broke into countless pieces. Jiang Wan's face turned ugly, as if she had eaten a fly. Hearing the noise, Li Ziheng looked over suspiciously. He and Anya had been in the hot pot restaurant for 20 minutes. It was only at this time that he realized that the person sitting at the next table was Jiang Wan. Wanner, are you okay? Chung Hao stood up, walked over with a concerned look on his face, grabbed Jiang Wan's hand, and examined it carefully. Jiang Wan retracted her gaze, smiled softly, and shook her head. It's okay. My hand just slipped. I'm glad you're okay. Chung Hao nodded, called the waiter, and asked the waiter to bring a new cup. Li Ziheng saw all of this. His eyes were calm, as if he didn't care at all. Anya glanced at Jiang Wan sideways and said suspiciously, Master, you didn't come here on purpose to provoke your ex-wife? I'm not that boring. Li Ziheng took a sip of beer and continued to eat his tripe. Both of them ate a lot. Anya could handle spicier food than he thought. Even though the spiciness made her drink a lot of water, she still kept eating. Maybe because she ate something spicy, Anya's eyes were watery and her fair cheeks were a little red. She looked very tempting, just like a ripe peach, making people want to take a bite. For a moment, Li Ziheng couldn't help but stare in amazement. Cough! Anya was stared at by Li Ziheng, and a hint of joy appeared at the corner of her lips. She deliberately coughed lightly, and Li Ziheng suddenly woke up. He looked away, and his ears turned red with embarrassment. Li Ziheng didn't dare to look at Anya, but Anya seemed to be interested. She supported her chin with both hands, tilted her head, and stared at Li Ziheng with a smile. Master, are you shy? Why are you shy? Upon hearing this, Li Ziheng rolled his eyes at Anya and changed the subject, saying, as the president of the company, you should be more steady in your work. What's wrong with me? Anya looked puzzled. Our sales manager works diligently and treats people well. Why did you deduct 2,000 yuan from his bonus for no apparent reason? Chapter 33. Anya is possessed by a spirit of drama. Chung Hao is like a clown. Speaking of this topic, Li Ziheng couldn't help but become serious. Manager Wang is only 35 years old. His wife is a full-time housewife taking care of their 2 children. He is the only one who bears the burden of household expenses, car loans, and mortgages. 2,000 may not be much for you, but for him, it may be his family's living expenses for a month. During the days he spent in the business department, he had some understanding of his colleague's situation. Especially the business manager Wang Chung, who is 35 years old, has good abilities, works seriously, and is good in all aspects. But the most important thing is that this man loves his wife, cares about his family, and has a very positive outlook on life. Several times when he was eating at the company, he found that Wang Chung did not go to the cafeteria, but took his lunchbox to the cafeteria to heat it up in the microwave. His salary is not low, but he is very frugal. After all, he wants to spend every penny he earns on his family. This is a good man. 2,000 yuan is not a lot, but it is not a small amount from Manager Wang. Li Ziheng briefly explained Wang Cheng's situation. After listening, Anya nodded solemnly and assured him, Master, don't worry. I will make up for his bonus later. It's a good thing to admit your mistakes and correct them. I'll give you a piece of tripe as a reward. Seeing this, Li Ziheng smiled and handed over a piece of freshly boiled tripe. His original intention was to put the tripe into Anya's bowl, but perhaps Anya got the wrong idea and actually opened her mouth directly towards him. Li Ziheng was a little embarrassed. Although they were serving chopsticks, he had to use them himself. Ouch! The tripe that Master cooked is so crispy and much tastier than the ones I cook myself. Anya took the tripe handed to her by Li Ziheng into her mouth and smiled with a smile on her face while chewing. Li Ziheng blushed a little because of this behavior. Pa! Just at this moment, a sound suddenly came from the next table. Li Ziheng turned his head and saw Jiang Wan's face was livid. She slapped her right hand on the table with a pair of long wooden chopsticks under her palm. Before, Jiang Wan would selectively ignore Li Ziheng, but now she couldn't help it. She stared at Li Ziheng, her eyes full of anger. Li Ziheng met Jiang Wan's angry eyes. He frowned and quickly retracted his gaze. Anya didn't look back, but from Li Ziheng's reaction, she vaguely guessed something. Ziheng, you worked hard last night. Come, have some oysters to replenish your body. Anya said loudly, and at the same time picked up the grilled oysters that the waiter had just brought, picked up the oyster meat with chopsticks, and put it to Li Ziheng's mouth. Li Ziheng was a little confused. Did you work hard last night? He didn't do anything last night. Why was he so hard? He stared at Anya with a look of surprise, and the latter winked at him playfully, signaling him to open his mouth quickly. Li Ziheng somehow managed to eat the oyster meat, and it was very tender, fresh and fragrant with a strong garlic flavor, and quite delicious. Jiang Wan saw the whole scene, and her face became extremely ugly. Seeing this, Cheng Hao on the opposite side stood up and walked towards Li Ziheng at the next table. He looked down at Li Ziheng and accused him condescendingly. Li Ziheng, are you going too far? Are you ill? Li Ziheng glanced at him with a look of impatience. He didn't even cause any trouble to Cheng Hao, but Cheng Hao took the initiative to come and provoke him. Do you think Li Ziheng is a soft persimmon who is too easy to bully? Aren't you dating Song Yi? Why are you being ambiguous with this woman now? Does Song Yi know that you are doing this? Cheng Hao remained calm and spoke in a questioning tone. He seemed to be standing on the moral high ground and came over to criticize Li Ziheng's despicable behavior of playing two-timing. I know you well. Li Ziheng was not angry, but felt it was a little funny. He stared at Cheng Hao as if he was an idiot. That look seemed to be saying, is it really necessary for you to point fingers and make comments about my affairs? Cheng Hao's face looked a little unhappy. He had thought that Li Ziheng would quarrel with him, but he never expected that Li Ziheng would be so indifferent and even a little disdainful to pay attention to him. This made him feel that his current behavior was a bit like a clown who was trying to attract attention. Chung Hao glared at Li Ziheng fiercely, then turned to look at Anya. Beauty, this man is not divorced, and he is hooking up with his wife's best friend. Such a man is not worthy of your favor. Anya looked shocked. He has a wife? She looked at Li Ziheng, her eyes full of disbelief. Li Ziheng rolled his eyes and said, "Go on, act." Seeing that Anya seemed unaware of this, Chung Hao felt very proud and immediately told her how Li Ziheng was a gigolo, had been living off his wife for 5 years, and had an affair with Song Yi. Of course, his words were inevitably exaggerated. As Anya listened, her face turned pale. She bit her lower lip lightly, looking pitiful as if she had been deceived by a scumbag. She said, "Li Ziheng, I didn't expect you to be this kind of person." Chung Hao smiled and said, "Beauty, it's not too late for you to know now. A man like this?" Anya asked with some unwillingness, "You have said so much. Do you have any evidence?" "I don't think he's the kind of person you said." "Evidence?" Chung Hao sneered. He first glanced at Li Ziheng, who was pretending to be calm, then turned around and pointed at Jiangwan. "Her name is Jiangwan, and she is Li Ziheng's current wife. If you don't believe me, you can just ask the two parties involved. Let them confront each other." Anya asked in confusion. "She is Li Ziheng's wife? Then why is she alone with you?" A trace of panic flashed across Chung Hao's face. We are colleagues, and it happened to be the weekend, so we made an appointment to go shopping and eat together. Since you knew your colleague had a husband, why did you invite her to dinner alone? Aren't you afraid that her husband would get jealous if he knew? Isn't it common sense to keep a distance from married people of the opposite sex?" Anya's eyes flashed with a trace of disgust, and she continued to ask, "Or did you do it on purpose? You deliberately flirted with married women to make their husbands jealous and break their relationship, and finally, you can take over. You gold digger, what nonsense are you talking about? Do you think I need to rely on others like you? I want ability and good looks, Chung Hao's expression suddenly changed, as if Anya had pointed out the despicable thoughts in his heart. He pointed at Anya and scolded her repeatedly. But Anya stood up calmly, picked up half a cup of coconut water, and poured it directly on Chung Hao's face. Chung Hao was chilled by the iced coconut water. His eyes widened with a stunned expression. "How dare you splash me?" As he said this, he raised his hand angrily, ready to slap Anya. But as soon as Chung Hao raised his hand, Li Ziheng quickly stood up and grabbed it. No matter how hard Chung Hao tried, his face turned red, but he couldn't break free. Chung Hao had a ferocious expression on his face and cursed. "Li Ziheng, what the hell do you mean? She is not something you can touch." Li Ziheng's eyes were cold, and he exerted force with his hands. Chung Hao staggered back 2 steps, slipped, and fell to the ground. This scene attracted the attention of many diners. Everyone looked over here, and Chung Hao's face turned pale and blue, looking extremely ugly. He wanted to teach Li Ziheng a lesson, but Li Ziheng was much stronger than him. If they really started fighting, he would definitely be the one to suffer. "Chung Hao, are you okay?" At this time, Jiangwan stood up, came over with a worried look on her face, and helped him up. Chung Hao smiled bitterly. "Wanner, I'm fine. I wanted to help you persuade Li Ziheng, but I didn't expect. Don't worry. I won't allow you to be bullied." Jiangwan's eyes turned cold. She walked quickly towards Li Ziheng, raised her hand, and slapped Li Ziheng in the face. "Li Ziheng, Chung Hao only came here to advise you out of kindness. How could you hit him? I order you to apologize to Chung Hao right now." Jiangwan glared at Li Ziheng angrily. Chapter 34. The Lingering Ghost. "Pa!" Just as Jiangwan finished her words, a fair jade hand suddenly slapped her arrogant face. She was stunned. He turned to look at Anya, whose face was extremely cold. "Boss and you?" Jiangwan was a little at a loss. She didn't understand why Anya hit her. "Ms. Jiang, Mr. Li Ziheng is my friend. Who gave you the courage to treat him like this?" Anya's pretty face was icy, even though she was the female president of a listed company with a market value of tens of billions. Whether in terms of appearance, temperament, aura, or background, she is enough to crush Jiangwan. In front of Anya, even if Jiangwan was slapped, she did not dare to show the slightest dissatisfaction. In today's society, what matters is family background and status. Anya is angry now. Jiangwan understood that if she dared to talk back or show even the slightest bit of anger, what awaited her, or what awaited Jiang, would be a catastrophic disaster. "Bossin, you misunderstood. Li Ziheng, he's my husband." Jiangwan lowered her posture and explained. Anya sneered. Your husband? Miss Jiang, are you kidding me? You said Mr. Li Zihang is your husband. But when that green tea man came over to provoke your husband just now, you clearly saw it. Why didn't you come over to stop him? Now that the green tea man has been taught a lesson by your husband, you can't wait to come over angrily to help the green tea man? In my opinion, Mr. Li Zihang is not your husband. That disgusting green tea is your husband, right? Anya's sarcasm left Jiang Wan speechless. She had a complicated expression. She wanted to explain herself, but couldn't find a suitable reason. In the end, she could only bow her head, apologize to Anya, and then prepare to leave. Etc. Li Zihang called her. Jiang Wan turned her head to look at Li Zihang, her eyes filled with frustration and confusion, but more of resentment. If it wasn't for Li Zihang, how could she have offended Anya? After all, the current result is all caused by Li Zihang. Pa! Li Zihang didn't waste any words and raised his hand to slap Jiang Wan. After being slapped twice, Jiang Wan's face looked extremely ugly. She gritted her teeth, her eyes reddened, and stared at Li Zihang with resentment. Li Zihang, you dare to hit me? What's wrong with hitting you? Li Zihang's eyes were cold and stern. Do you think I deserve to be slapped in public? Or do you think that only your dignity is dignity and mine can be trampled on by you at will? Growing up like this, haven't your parents ever told you to learn to respect others? Li Zihang's words made Jiang Wan slightly stunned. She didn't expect that Li Zihang, who had always accommodated her and tolerated her in the past, would say this to her. A feeling of grievance spread rapidly. Jiang Wan's eyes were filled with tears, and she said in a hoarse voice, "You would never do this to me before. You were my wife before, and I gave in to you in everything because I wanted to make our marriage work. Now we are getting divorced. Why do you think I will still give in to you?" Li Zihang had a cold expression and stared at Jiang Wan as if he was staring at a stranger. "Jiang Wan, please stay away from me from now on. I feel sick just by looking at you now." Jiang Wan wanted to say something, but Li Zihang yelled, "Get lost." You. Jiang Wan gritted her teeth, but because Anya was still beside her, she didn't dare to lose her temper. She glared at Li Zihang fiercely, then left quickly without looking back. Seeing this, Chung Hao hurriedly followed. However, when he was about to pass by Li Zihang, he deliberately lowered his voice and said, "Li Zihang, I should thank you. Because of you, Warner will be with me without any psychological burden." After saying that, Chung Hao looked at Li Zihang proudly. He wanted to see emotions such as sadness, regret, and anger on Li Zihang's face. But to his disappointment, in the face of his verbal provocation, Li Zihang just smiled indifferently. Chung Hao felt as powerless as if he had punched cotton. He did not stay, but quickened his pace to chase Jiang Wan. After the two disgusting people left, Anya took the initiative to admit her mistake. "Master, I'm sorry. It's all because of me that you got slapped for nothing." Li Zihang glanced at her and smiled helplessly. "This matter has nothing to do with you. Don't blame yourself." Seeing that Li Zihang was not angry with her, Anya couldn't help but complain. "Master, you have a really bad eye for people. Why did you marry a blind woman like Jiang Wan? And you spent 5 years with her. If it were me, I would have kicked her out 800 years ago." Faced with Anya's complaints, Li Zihang was unable to refute. After all, what Anya said was true. Jiang Wan was indeed a little blind. If she wasn't blind, how could she not see that Chung Hao approached her deliberately with a purpose? "Master, why don't you consider me? I think I'm better than Jiang Wan in every way. Besides, I'm very loyal and will never flirt with any man other than my husband." As Anya spoke, a light of anticipation flashed in her beautiful peach blossom eyes. Li Zihang reached out and rubbed her head and said with a smile, "I can consider taking you as my sister." Anya frowned slightly. How can a sister be as popular as a wife? If you think the progress is too fast, I can be your girlfriend first. Don't make a fuss. I'm not considering a relationship right now. Li Zihang refused mercilessly. Anya suddenly looked frustrated. She sighed quietly. "Okay, I'll just be your sister. As long as I work hard, I can become your aunt's sister in the future." Li Zihang felt ashamed when he heard the vicious words coming out of Anya's mouth. He didn't quite understand. Why does the dignified goddess behave like a bootlicker in front of him? Downstairs in the community where the rental house is located, Li Zihang watched Anya drive away. He turned around and prepared to enter the community, but at this moment, a black Audi suddenly stopped at the gate of the community. The car door opened, Jiang Wan got out and quickly followed. Li Zihang stopped. Hearing Jiang Wan's voice coming from behind him, Li Ziheng frowned immediately. This woman is really haunting. He turned around, and to his surprise, this time Jiang Wan was not accompanied by Cheng Hao, the green tea man. Jiang Wan stopped in front of Li Ziheng and asked in a bad tone, Li Ziheng, when did you and Mr. In from Yunhai meet? Does it have anything to do with you? Why should I tell you? Li Ziheng frowned even deeper. There was no way Jiang Wan knew where he lived now. The fact that she could find him here meant that she had been following him. Jiang Wan's eyes flickered. Don't you want to divorce me? I can promise you that, but you have to answer a few questions first. After you answer them, I will accompany you to the Civil Affairs Bureau on Monday to go through the divorce procedures. Li Ziheng was silent for a moment, then said, Anya and I met on the day you brought Cheng Hao home. Hearing this, Jiang Wan frowned slightly, and she murmured in a low voice, So, the person Anya is talking about should not be you. Any other questions? Li Ziheng was a little sleepy. He had been busy all day, and he really didn't want to waste time with Jiang Wan. She can condescend to have dinner with you alone, which means your relationship is still okay. Can you talk to Anya and let her continue to cooperate with Zhang's? As if she was afraid that Li Ziheng would refuse, Jiang Wan added, As long as you can convince Anya to continue cooperating with Zhang's, I can forgive everything you did before, and I will keep my distance from Cheng Hao in the future. Chapter 35. Once divorced, there is no turning back. Puff! Li Ziheng, who was originally feeling a little sleepy, couldn't help laughing out loud after hearing Jiang Wan's shameless words. Jiang Wan, you don't still think that I'm angry with you, do you? Isn't it? First it was Song Yi, and now it's Anya. You deliberately get close to them. Aren't you trying to make me jealous? Jiang Wan had a determined expression on her face. If Anya had not appeared before, she might have really suspected that Li Ziheng and Song Yi were together. But after Anya appeared, she realized that what Li Ziheng and Song Yi were doing was just acting. It's just to make myself mad. After 5 years of marriage, she felt that she knew Li Ziheng well enough. Li Ziheng is loyal in his relationships and keeps a distance from the opposite sex. He would never have dinner alone with Anya while dating Song Yi. What's more, Li Ziheng and Anya were so intimate just now. If this isn't acting, what else could it be? If you think it is, then it is. Looking at Jiang Wan's self-righteous look, Li Ziheng really didn't have the patience to explain to her. Li Ziheng, what's your attitude? Li Ziheng's perfunctory attitude was too obvious, and Jiang Wan was a little angry. I've already given you a way out, so don't act so arrogant in front of me. Do I need you to give me a step? Li Ziheng had an impatient expression on his face. Jiang Wan angrily said, Li Ziheng, do you really want to divorce me? I tell you, once we divorce, I will never look back to keep you. This is the only time I will try to keep you, and it will be the last time. You'd better think it over carefully. I've thought it through very clearly. Next Monday, I'll go to the Civil Affairs Bureau and get a divorce. After Li Ziheng finished speaking, he turned around and walked into the community without looking back. Li Ziheng, Zhang's has found a new partner. Even without Yunhai's cooperation, Zhang's will still get better and better. If you regret it in the future, I won't give you another chance. Jiang Wan's threatening voice came from behind. But Li Ziheng did not look back, but walked further and further away. Jiang Wan's face looked a little ugly. She stood under the street light, staring at Li Ziheng's gradually receding back for a long time. Only when she could no longer see Li Ziheng's back did she turn around and get into the car angrily. The next day, Zhang Haixing invited Cheng Hao to his home for dinner. On his first visit, Cheng Hao bought a lot of high-end nutritional products, but even so, Zhang Haixing and Lu Faning's attitude towards him was still lukewarm. At the dinner table, Zhang Haixing went straight to the point. Cheng Hao, I heard from Warner that your uncle Ding Juanxiong wants to invest in our Jiang Corporation. Yes, uncle. My uncle's real estate company has reached a bottleneck, so he wants to invest in other industries. For this reason, I specifically recommended Zhang's to him. So, how much does he want to invest? About 100 million. Cheng Hao answered truthfully. This amount of money made Zhang Haixing tempted. 100 million in cash is no small sum. Although Zhang's current market value is 1 billion yuan, that is only the market value, and the actual liquid capital is only more than 10 million yuan. Moreover, these more than 10 million cannot be moved. Zhang Haixing's eyes flickered, and he fell into deep thought. He has been running Zhang's business for more than 10 years and has trained Jiang Wan for 5 years. To be honest, he has wanted to retire a long time ago. If he had 100 million, he could hand over the power of Zhang's to Jiang Wan and then live out his retirement with his wife, Lu Fanting, in peace. Zhang's market value is 1 billion. If your uncle invests 100 million, then I can only give him 10% of the company's shares at most. Jiang Haixing gave the answer. But Cheng Hao is obviously not satisfied with this answer. Although Zhang's market value is 10 billion, the current situation is that Zhang's has lost its cooperation with Yunhai. Secondly, the company's core drugs still have some side effects. If subsequent drug optimization is not done well, they're likely to be eliminated by the market. According to these circumstances, Zhang's market value is bound to decline. But Jiang Haixing wanted to sell his shares at the market value of Zhang's best state, which was obviously an attempt to take advantage. Jiang Haixing is an old fox, but Cheng Hao is not stupid either. He said with difficulty, "Uncle, I am currently the business manager of Zhang's company. I know the situation of Zhang's company very well." Zhang Wan put the peeled shrimp into Cheng Hao's bowl, then turned to her father Jiang Haixing and said, "Dad, according to Zhang's current situation, the market value is definitely not worth 1 billion. You're offering 10% of the shares, which is obviously not appropriate." Jiang Haixing frowned slightly and looked at his daughter Jiang Wan with some disappointment. Although Lu Fangting didn't know how to run a company or what market value was, she knew that Jiang Wan shouldn't speak for Cheng Hao at this time. "Waner, my phone has had some problems recently. Come with me to the room and help me find out what's going on." Lu Fangting put down her bowl and chopsticks, stood up, and pulled Jiang Wan into the room. Without Jiang Wan, the fool who was so stubborn, Jiang Haixing stopped hiding anything and asked directly, "Your uncle probably doesn't know about Zhang's situation, right?" Cheng Hao smiled and nodded. Jiang Haixing's eyes were as sharp as torches, as if he could see through people's hearts. "So, what do you want?" "Uncle, you opposed me and Waner being together back then because I was not worthy of her. Now I think I am capable of standing by Waner's side and helping her run and manage the company." Cheng Hao paused and then added, "As long as my uncle agrees to let me date Waner, I can hide it from my uncle and let him buy 10% of Zhang's shares for 100 million. Is this the only request?" Jiang Haixing narrowed his eyes slightly. Cheng Hao said sincerely, "Uncle, I returned to China and joined Zhang's company not for money. It's because I really like Waner and want to be with her." "So you deliberately got close to Waner to destroy her relationship with Li Ziheng?" Jiang Haixing sneered, his eyes full of contempt. "Put away your hypocrisy in front of me. I'm not as stupid as Waner. I know exactly what you're thinking." "Uncle, you misunderstood. Cheng Hao wanted to defend himself. But Jiang Haixing was too lazy to listen. His words directly made Cheng Hao unable to refute. "Don't explain. If you really liked Waner, you wouldn't have taken the 1 million I gave you to go abroad." Cheng Hao looked a little embarrassed. He couldn't explain this. "Don't worry. Waner doesn't know about this. If you really have the ability, I don't mind you being with Waner, but ability is not something you can say, but something you can show with action. You are a smart person. You should understand what I mean. Now that things have come to this." Cheng Hao naturally understood. He nodded and said, "Uncle, rest assured. I know what to do. I will send the 100 million and 10% share transfer contract to my uncle whenever you are ready. I'll draft the contract on Monday. If there's nothing else, go call your aunt and want her out for dinner." The topic had been discussed, so Jiang Haixing didn't say anything more. After dinner, Jiang Wan sent Cheng Hao out of the community. Along the way, Cheng Hao had a happy smile on his face. "Waner, I just talked to my uncle about our affairs, and he has no objection to us being together." When Cheng Hao said this, a strange look flashed in Jiang Wan's eyes. She hummed softly and did not give any extra response. Cheng Hao frowned, but didn't think much about it. After all, he had already completed 2 steps of his plan. As long as there are no unexpected events in the subsequent plans, Jiang will become his sooner or later. Time flies, and it is Monday. Cheng Hao went to Tianhai City with the contract for the transfer of 10% of Zhang's shares. Jiang Wan drove to the Civil Affairs Bureau. As soon as I arrived at the Civil Affairs Bureau, I saw Li Ziheng getting out of a taxi. The 2 men didn't speak, but walked into the Civil Affairs Bureau one after another. Because it was morning, there were not many people at the Civil Affairs Bureau going through divorce procedures. The 2 quickly signed and submitted their divorce application. Next, you have to wait for the 30-day divorce cooling-off period. You have to wait 30 days before you can get the divorce certificate. After coming out of the Civil Affairs Bureau, Li Ziheng didn't even look back and prepared to take a taxi to Yunhai to work. Li Ziheng, in 1 year at most, you will regret your decision today. Jiang Wan quickly caught up with him, said something coldly, then quickly got into the car and left. "Regret?" Li Ziheng smiled and murmured, Jiang Wan, The thing I regret most in my life is coming to Yunhai to find you 5 years ago. Before he went out this morning, he received a call from Anya and learned from Anya that Zhang Haixing sold 10% of Zhang's shares to Uncle Cheng Hao. He has information about Cheng Hao and also about his uncle Ding Juanxiu. The reason why he didn't take out the information to nail Cheng Hao to death was that he just wanted to use Cheng Hao to complete his plan. The mantis stalks the cicada, unaware of the oriole behind. The final beneficiary will never be Cheng Hao, let alone Ding Juanxiu. The big net has been spread secretly, and what Li Ziheng has to do is to wait for the right time to carry out the final work of closing the net. Unterstrich x 001 0 unterstrich 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 unterstrich x 0. Chapter 36. The third time of being kissed by force, having sex after drinking. Sea of Clouds. President's office. After Anya finished the work at hand, she called her secretary in. Notify the finance department to increase the base salary of business manager Wang Chung by 3,000 yuan and give him an additional 20,000 yuan in bonus this month. The female secretary looked surprised and couldn't help asking, "Bossin, what's the reason for increasing manager Wang's base salary and bonus?" Anya turned the pen in her hand, thought for a moment, and replied, "Take care of your family, love your wife, be good to your subordinates." When the female secretary heard this, her eyes widened and she looked surprised. Manager Wang's reluctance to treat his subordinates can be considered an excuse. But taking care of the family and loving his wife, what does this have to do with our company? The secretary was very curious, but didn't dare to ask more questions. At the same time, Li Ziheng has returned to the company. However, when he came back, it was already 10:30 in the morning, an hour and a half late. Li Ziheng was prepared to have his salary deducted, but when manager Wang Qing saw him, he just smiled and patted him on the shoulder. "Ziheng, you've only been here for a short time, so forget it this time. Be more careful next time." Wang Qing's face was flushed, and he seemed to be in a good mood. He cleared his throat and said loudly to his colleagues, "Everyone, finish the work on hand as soon as possible. After get off work, I will treat you to a meal for our department. By the way, I will also welcome our new colleague Li Ziheng." As soon as these words came out, colleagues in the business department cheered. A female colleague jokingly asked, "Boss, have you made a fortune? Thanks to you, my base salary has increased by 3,000 yuan. And this month, Mr. N also gave me an extra 20,000 yuan in bonus." Wang Chung did not hide anything and admitted it generously. "Oh my God, boss, did you save Mr. N's life? You increased his base salary by 3,000 yuan all at once. And that's not all. You also added an extra 20,000 yuan in bonuses?" My colleagues all looked like curious babies. "Don't talk nonsense." Wang Chung glared at the colleague who had teased him, then scratched his head and said, "I'm a little confused too, but the finance department said that Mr. N said that I take care of my family, love my wife, and treat my subordinates well, so he increased my salary and bonus." "Boss, who would believe this reason? You must have done something behind our backs." The colleague who made the joke obviously didn't believe it. Not only him, but all his colleagues in the department except Li Ziheng didn't believe it. "If you don't believe me, just get back to work. I won't wait for you after get off work." Wang Chung cursed with a smile, then turned around and went back to his office. The working hours are boring, but they go by quickly. In the blink of an eye, it was time to get off work. Wang Chung took the lead and led his colleagues from the same department to a restaurant near the company for dinner. The business department, including the manager Wang Chung, has a total of 21 people, so Wang Chung asked for a large private room. After a busy day, as soon as the food and drinks were served, everyone started to clink glasses. As the two protagonists of the dinner, Wang Chung and Li Ziheng were forced to drink a lot of alcohol. Wang Chung has a good alcohol tolerance and accepts all drinks. Li Ziheng wanted to refuse, but he couldn't resist his colleagues' enthusiasm, and in the end he drank a little too much without realizing it. Just when he was feeling a little dizzy, his cell phone suddenly rang. He subconsciously took out his cell phone and pressed the answer button. "Baby, what are you doing?" Song Yi's voice came from the receiver of the mobile phone. The voice was a little soft, as if she was acting coquettishly. Li Ziheng looked drunk and spoke incoherently. "I'm having dinner with my colleagues." "What's up? Have you been drinking?" "Well, my colleagues are so enthusiastic." "Where are you eating?" "I'll pick you up later." "No need. I live near the company, and I can go back by myself later." "You're already drunk. What if you run into bad guys on the way back? Be good and tell me where you are. I'll come right over." "I am here." Li Ziheng was a little confused due to the alcohol. He heard Song Yi asking him questions, so he told her the address. After eating and drinking, the colleagues left one after another. When Li Ziheng walked out of the hotel, he saw Song Yi waiting at the door. Song Yi was wearing a white slim suspender dress. Her snow-white shoulders and delicate collarbones were exposed to the air, looking very sexy. Seeing Li Ziheng coming out, Song Yi's eyes lit up and she walked up to him in high heels. She took Li Ziheng's arm and said in a somewhat reproachful tone, "Why did you drink so much?" "It's okay. I didn't drink too much." Li Ziheng retained the last bit of clarity and replied with a silly smile. Song Yi rolled her eyes at Li Ziheng speechlessly. "Are you not drunk yet? You can't even walk steadily, okay?" "No way." Li Ziheng is stubborn. But Song Yi didn't argue with him, but asked about Li Ziheng's address. Afterwards, he helped Li Ziheng back to the rental house. After returning to the rental house, Li Ziheng slumped down on the sofa. He held his forehead and said drunkenly, "Thank you for sending me back. It's getting late. You should go back early. Bang." The door was closed. Li Ziheng thought Song Yi had left. He tried hard to get up and go back to his room, but when he raised his head, he saw someone standing in front of him. Why didn't you leave?" Li Ziheng looked at Song Yi, standing in front of him with bleary eyes. Song Yi didn't say anything. She lowered her head and stared at Li Ziheng with complicated eyes. Li Ziheng wanted to continue speaking, but the next second, Song Yi suddenly pounced on him, grabbed the back of his neck, and kissed him forcefully. This was the third time she forcefully kissed Li Ziheng. Li Ziheng felt very dizzy and his body felt weak. He tried to push Song Yi away, but failed. "Song Yi, don't. Dash. Don't take off my clothes." Song Yi is very domineering. She ignored Li Ziheng's resistance and struggle, and deepened the kiss domineeringly while tearing off Li Ziheng's shirt. In just a short while, all the clothes on Li Ziheng were stripped off by her. "Are you crazy? We can't do this." Li Ziheng was breathing heavily. He was a normal man, and after being tormented by Song Yi like this, he also got into the mood. But his remaining rationality told him that he could not do anything out of line with Song Yi. But Song Yi seemed not to hear what he said. She stood in front of Li Ziheng and raised her hand to take off her suspender dress. "Li Ziheng, you are mine? I want you to be responsible for me." A mist welled up in Song Yi's eyes, and she moved forward and pressed on Li Ziheng. Boom. Li Ziheng's mind went blank. The string called reason broke under Song Yi's teasing. The two of them were entangled with each other like crazy. The passionate kisses continued. Li Ziheng was breathing heavily, and Song Yi was sweating profusely. The two walked from the sofa in the living room to the big bed in the bedroom. In the dim bedroom, what lingered in Li Ziheng's ears was Song Yi's gentle and soft moaning, which lasted for a full 2 hours. Chapter 37. Taste the taste a little addictive. When the lovemaking ended, Li Ziheng had already fallen into a deep sleep. Song Yi's face flushed. She lay on Li Ziheng's chest, crying silently. The two of them were not covered with a blanket, and under the dim light, a glaring red spot on the bedsheet was vaguely visible. The next day, at dawn, Li Ziheng woke up because he had to urinate. His head was still a little dazed, but he vaguely remembered that he had a very beautiful dream last night. That dream was so real. Whether it is the touch of your hands or the in-depth experience, it is extremely real. "I'm really crazy. I actually dreamed of doing that kind of thing with Song Yi." Li Ziheng thought so in his heart. Just as he was about to stand up, he suddenly felt that his arm seemed to be pressed by something soft. He turned his head, and when he saw the scene in front of him, his face turned pale as paper. Li Ziheng thought he had a dream last night. But when he saw Song Yi naked and sleeping quietly in his bed, he realized that everything that happened last night was not a dream. But it's something that really happened. Last night, I was drunk and had sex with Song Yi. Song Yi hasn't woken up yet. Her hair is disheveled. Her breathing is even. Her beautiful eyes are closed, and there is still a hint of seductive blush on her delicate cheeks. As if she felt the movement of the person beside her, her curled eyelashes trembled slightly, and then she opened her slightly red eyes. The two looked at each other, and Li Ziheng was so embarrassed that he was speechless. But Song Yi just glanced at Li Ziheng, then stretched out her hands, hugged Li Ziheng's neck, and leaned her head closer. "Little rascal, I'm so sleepy. Let me sleep a little longer." Song Yi's voice was weak and lazy. Feeling the heat coming from his neck, Li Ziheng's whole body straightened. It's over. Li Ziheng was in a state of confusion. He had no feelings for Song Yi and simply treated her as a friend. But now that this has happened, how should he face Song Yi in the future? He didn't know if it was because he drank too much last night or because of Song Yi, but he just felt a headache. It was only a little after 6 in the morning, but Li Ziheng was already completely sleepless. He lay in bed in distress for a long time and finally couldn't hold it in anymore. He got out of bed carefully and quietly and went to the bathroom. After going to the bathroom, Li Ziheng took a hot bath and brushed his teeth. After doing all this, he walked out of the bathroom feeling uneasy. At this time, he had a white bath towel wrapped around his waist. He wanted to get some clothes from the closet, but when he walked to the bed, he found that Song Yi had woken up at some point. Song Yi lay sideways, supporting her head with her right hand. Her delicate and tempting cherry lips slightly parted. Her snow-white breasts were as plump as a ball, and her white and slender legs were rubbing gently. The scene was extremely erotic. Her eyes were as clear as autumn water, with a sly smile in them, and she looked straight at Li Ziheng. Li Ziheng's cheeks felt hot. He swallowed and quickly looked away, feeling so embarrassed that he didn't know what to do. "Baby, why are you up so early? Why don't you stay up with me for a while?" Song Yi felt numb to the bone, and her heart-stirring voice rang out. Li Ziheng's body trembled, and he tried hard to stay calm. He hurriedly shook his head and said, "No, I'm used to getting up early, and I can't sleep." "Are you blushing?" Looking at Li Ziheng, who was so close to her, Song Yi's face was filled with a charming and breathtaking smile. "No, it's just a little hot." Li Ziheng felt a dry mouth. "Hot? Then take it off. We already did that last night. Why are you shy?" As Song Yi spoke, she suddenly sat up, grabbed Li Ziheng's hand, and pulled him hard onto the bed. Li Ziheng was caught off guard and fell directly on the bed. We already acted ridiculously last night. We can't go on like this." Li Ziheng's heart was beating like a drum, and he wanted to get up, but Song Yi had already wrapped herself around him like a beautiful snake, using her hands and feet. "It was so painful last night, I didn't feel much. Let's do it again." Song Yi blew hot air into Li Ziheng's ears. The temperature in the room suddenly rose at this moment. Li Ziheng took a deep breath and tried to break free, but after a struggle, he still went in. 1 hour later, Song Yi lay on Li Ziheng's chest, a blush still lingering on her delicate little face. Her slender fingers drew circles on Li Ziheng's chest, and she asked softly, "Baby, was it your first time last night?" Li Ziheng nodded slightly. Song Yi laughed softly and said in a delicate voice, "What a coincidence, me too." Li Ziheng didn't know how to answer. What happened last night was a drunken affair. But just now, he really couldn't resist the temptation and ate Song Yi twice. If it were in the past, Li Ziheng would not have such poor self-control, but after what happened last night, he has tasted the sweetness. This kind of thing, after the first time, you will become addicted and want it a second time and a third time. Although he did not have any romantic feelings for Song Yi, he had to admit that Song Yi gave him a pleasant experience he had never had before. How do I describe that feeling? It feels so good. Just as Li Ziheng was recalling the wonderful taste just now, Song Yi suddenly raised her head and asked with sparkling eyes, "Li Ziheng, will you be responsible for me?" Li Ziheng nodded without hesitation. Although there are no feelings, since it has come to this, he can't just pretend nothing happened. As a man, you should either not do it, or if you do it, you have to be responsible for the girl. "Who am I to you now?" Song Yi had a smile on her lips. Li Ziheng thought for a moment and replied, "Girlfriend." "Good." Song Yi smiled even more happily and pinched Li Ziheng's face. Then he got up and went into the bathroom without any hesitation. After a while, the sound of water running after the shower was turned on could be heard from the bathroom. Li Ziheng was lying on the bed, and at this moment, he wanted to smoke. He used to smoke, but he quit because Jiangwan didn't like the smell of cigarettes. But now, he really wanted to light one and puff on it. To use the words on the internet, this seems to be called after-the-fact smoke. 20 minutes later, Song Yi came out wrapped in Li Ziheng's bath towel. The bath towel is not big and can only cover a limited area. She tilted her head and was wiping her wet long hair with the towel. There were a few crystal-clear drops of water hanging on her fair shoulders. "Baby, what time do you go to work? I'll drive you there in a bit." Song Yi's cheeks are rosy, and her white and beautiful legs are particularly slender, looking very attractive. If Li Ziheng wasn't in sage time, he really wanted to pull Song Yi to the bed and have another big fight. "No need. The company is very close to me. I can get there in a few steps." Li Ziheng refused. It's not that he is pretentious, but the rental house he rents is indeed very close to the company. Okay then, we'll have breakfast together later. Then you go to work, and I'll go home. Song Yi smiled and picked up the hairdryer to blow her hair. Li Ziheng thought about it and asked tentatively, "Are you coming over tonight?" Song Yi turned around and gave Li Ziheng a coquettish look. "Little rascal, 3 times last night and twice just now. Do you want to kill me?" Hearing this, Li Ziheng looked embarrassed. Seeing this, Song Yi burst into laughter and added, "Let's take a break tonight. I'll come find you when I'm well rested. _X0007 _. Chapter 38. Are you unhappy because I stole your man?